everyone. This is Saad here in the studio in London. Hello, Gregory. Are you there?
Hello.
Hello, Gregory. Welcome to the show. How are you doing and where are you?
Well, very well in front in Brussels,
Brussels, okay.
and it's quite warm here, but not too hot.
Not too hot. Okay. I think I can say the same here in London. It's very bright, warm, and well, it's got warmer throughout the day. It was overcast, but it's got warmer and warmer. So, welcome to the show, listeners. This is Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program. And the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And we have a new topic each week. The topic for tonight is how words and thoughts matter. How words and thoughts matter. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. As usual, I'm going to begin with what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Abdrushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life, for through the knowledge mediated, the readers again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abdrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, the topic we're discussing tonight is how words and thoughts matter. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in the UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 004479 444 31366. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, when I think about this topic for tonight, how words and thoughts matter, you know, we know about, let's say, the physical world where you can see everything, and it's obvious, with actions, what reactions you get from that. Most of it, let's say, and then. But when we think of words and thoughts, which we can't see, and you wonder if actually, there's any real impact. We know there is an impact, but do they really exist? Do they, in the sense of, do they have an effect? I will say, and because a word, you can't feel it, you can't touch a word, and similarly thoughts, you can't really say you feel thoughts, you just have thoughts, and doesn't sound the same as an impact from a physical action. So my first question really, do words and thoughts, do they really have an impact? If they do have an impact, what sort of impact? How does that impact happen?
Well, thanks for that particular question. And on a personal note, it's very surprising because here we are exchanging words, and yet we're asking ourselves, do words have an impact? If words have no impact, how then are we able to communicate with words, yet the other party is able to understand? That only proves instantly that words have a very strong impact indeed. Basically, these are perceptions generally. These are tools for perception, tools for communications, tools for a language, which language may be the spoken. So what you are referring to generally is the spoken word. There is also the written word, and that's why we have books. And it's through the written word that we have information being preserved from one generation to another. In the past, it was the spoken word, where they or the community had not developed the art of writing, of preserving the spoken words in writing. So words have an impact, and a very strong impact for that matter. Thoughts, however, also have impact. For before anything is written down or even spoken, that must have arisen from out of one's thinking or reflection. So the thoughts come first, then the words follow. Those words may be verbalized, as we are now doing, or may be written down, in which you have books or material to convey our thoughts. So on an ordinary level, thoughts and words they do matter because they form the fabric of the language with which we ourselves need to communicate with our fellow creatures here in the world of matter.
Thank you, Gregory, for this for your answer there. Um, yes, I mean definitely, it's quite obvious when you say it that how clear the words do have an effect and matter, and and then you talked about the thoughts where the thoughts are preceding their words before we speak. Then I mean, so would you say every thought has an impact, and every time because words always do have some impact, but just by saying something there's always going to be an impact. But with thoughts, is it always something happening with a thought, or is there some, like you could call them, is it weak thoughts which do not manifest at all, and then which some thoughts which are strong which do manifest? So is there some degree of impact with the thoughts?
Of course, thoughts have an impact. They only have an impact on those who vibrate at that same level. Using the expression to vibrate at that same level only means for those who resonate at that same level, then they will have an impact. Else they will just flow away and they will have no impact. For when thoughts or words are flung at someone, if that person is not in resonance, by resonance, one is referring to the basic law in nature, which is that of the attraction of homogeneity. If there is no homogeneity within the thoughts with another, then absolutely there is no impact. But if there is some homogeneity, then you have the accumulations of these thoughts. Then, and therein, they have an impact, which impact can be to drag someone down because that person sort of responds to these thoughts, or to ennoble a particular personality. As long as that personality is able to internalize or is able to vibrate on the same level with those thoughts, then they will have an impact. But the sort of impact they will have on that person depends on the states of that personality. If that personality ignores, although the thoughts do assail that person, if he or she ignores them, then they have no consequence. If, however, he or she does not ignore them and takes them into consideration, then in that particular scenario, depending on the purity of that personality, they may have or may not have an impact.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. Following what you have said, something struck me in my head that in some cultures or some places they practice black magic, and where somebody who, let's say, has a grudge or wants to harm someone, and employs or goes to some, let's call a witch or whatever, people who practice, let's say, dark things, in where in this case, let's say they use a dummy, it sounds funny, and put needles into it and say some words, and somehow that has an impact on this so-called victim or the person they want to attack, uh, and it seems to be working. I mean, you don't see it so much in the West, I guess, but you hear about it uh, in some places. And I just wanted to check with you. You said that the thoughts only affect where there's some homogeneity. Let's say I send out a thought to somebody that I want to harm, and the person who I want to harm must be sort of somehow aligned with that, with the thoughts that I'm sending out. So, but as I said, we don't see that too much here in the West, but you do hear about these things, let's say, other places. And so I was to ask you, is it only homogeneity that attracts this, let's say, I'm talking about the harmful in this case, but it could be another way. But let me focus on this one for just now. Is it not also culture that where they believe such things or think of these things, of these things, can that where the impact will take place? So is it not similar, just not only the thought of the, in quotes, the victim, but also maybe the culture there as well?
Well, you already have found an answer to it because you said they believe such things. That belief is the first step of opening oneself to a particular type of thoughts. Because in that case, the belief is such that one surrounds oneself with similar thoughts. And in that case, we then have some sort of homogeneity. That means, in accordance with the attraction of homogeneity, the tendency, therefore, is to attract such unworthy and such heavy thoughts towards oneself. And of course, they will do some harm because belief has become the first step. And one also strengthens these ignoble thoughts through one's activity. So there must be some homogeneity. If there is no homogeneity, then those thoughts will not even come near because there's nothing in common.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Now, here I was giving an example of some, let's say, uh, thoughts traveling from A to B, like person A to person B. What about our own thoughts? Do our own thoughts affect us, and like, do they form our fate? So, and how does it work if that's the case? Because yeah, so do our thoughts have effect on us in terms of forming our fate?
Of course, our own thoughts do affect us and also sort of help to fashion a path which one has to follow. And that path may be, called the path of fate. Because when we generate and surround ourselves with heavy thoughts, with those terrible thoughts, what then happens? Our immediate surrounding is that of ignoble thoughts. If it's those thoughts of love, then in accordance with homogeneity, thoughts of love from other sources or from other feeder sources will be attracted to us. If it is thoughts of hatred, then those threads, those feeder sources will accumulate at a particular point. That point may be a human personality, who, like others, harbor similar thoughts of hatred or of murder. And in that case, that personality, if not very clear within himself, may be prompted to carry out some earthly activity in accordance with what he or she has already perceived. And you now have cases of murder, such murders that have been made manifest even in recent times. So the only way to avoid most of this is to ensure one does not produce thoughts of hatred, thoughts of animosity, such that there will be no accumulations of such. And if there is no accumulations of such, then you will have the scenario that no one within that neighborhood will be in a position to carry out what is not there, because those thoughts must precede the physical activity. Those thoughts are like the models which we have before the physical activity precipitates.
Thank you for that. I want to look at what science is doing, and they've been doing experiments, and you know noticing that words have influence. Like we mentioned, we know they have influence, but it was only, let's say, we couldn't show it in a physical way, and I'm aware of a Japanese scientist. His name has escaped me now for now, who's done some experiments where he put labels on, let's say, a glass of water with different words like hate, love, and and the waters were that water, in each glass that he put these words on, he crystallized them, and you could see patterns. Some were quite beautiful. Well, when it was a word like love, it was a beautiful pattern, and when it was hate, it was like an ugly pattern. And there were other words similar like that, and that had that impact. So, in a way, science also is finding these things, that these words, like we said today, words and thoughts matter. And here you have like evidence, physical evidence, you can say, that these things can be shown to, that they actually have an effect. So what I want to say from that is, maybe we can learn a lesson, Gregory, of how we should be, now it's obvious. For example, there's somebody spoke to me recently, where a person basically, they wanted, let's say, as a child, the mother of the child said to the child that you have to be strong. This is a girl that the mother was speaking to, and that you must be able to live independently, and be able to do things yourself and everything like that. And then, so she has lived a life basically on this motto that I'm equal. It's like, I know in today's world men and women are supposed to be equal, but let's say there's quite a battle for the women to be considered to be equal. So they seem to have to like work hard, let's say, to achieve their goals in life on their own. So the point, I know I'm being a bit long-winded here, but the point I want to say is, somebody had to have like a motto, a girl in this case, where I'm just an equal person. I can do anything what I want to do, and by working hard, I can achieve it. At the same time, they have achieved all these things, and yet they still somehow feel they've been doing it only because they had to, you know, it was like they couldn't have done it without this being forced to do it, you know. So what I'm trying to say, Gregory, is, you know, these words have influence. You know, when, let's say, your parents give you some advice, they have an influence, but the influence seems to last for long life until, let's say, you grow up and think, hang on a second, do I want to do this myself, or is it am I doing this for myself, or am I doing it because somebody told me to do it? So what I'm trying to say, Gregory, these words can have a very far long-lasting and far, reaching far outer than you would expect to have. So, Gregory, if somebody is, you know, being brought up, let's say, in a particular way, and then they later think, wait a minute, this is not me, this is somebody telling me something, how can they sort of become free of themselves to to do what they want, basically, rather than follow what they've been told like a kid?
Well, you had already mentioned it, what they should do, because you also mentioned after some time they say, wait a minute, is this me or is it someone? I'm doing what somebody's bidding. That is a point of inflection. That is more of a turning point. As with everything, whatever information is passed to us, whether it be advice or otherwise, these advices must be examined thoroughly and rigorously to become convinced that these pieces of advice will be of benefit not only tactically but also strategically over a long period of time. Such way of thinking or such activities helps the human spirit to mature because he or she now examines whatever has been passed on to it. Otherwise, he or she is only taking the opinions of others, whether it's helpful or not. And as long as he has not experienced it in full, then the knowledge that has arisen from experience is lacking. So it's always helpful to evaluate whatever has been passed on to one, be it piece of advice or a piece of knowledge, or even one's own physical body. There is the need to check everything anew. That is only the process of striving aright to understand what has been passed on as knowledge, to find out if that can be counted as real experience, which experience will be of value to the human spirit. But again, this has to be done not just once, but again and again and again.
Thank you, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And the topic we're discussing tonight is how words and thoughts matter. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in the UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or want to have more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that: www.grail, GRAIL, message, MESSAGE.com. Gregory, another thing is, we've been talking about words and thoughts in a sort of, well, partly in a, treating them separately and partly looking at them together. I want to look at a specific aspect now where, people say some words, but behind that they are having different intentions. Let's say opposing that intention. And it's like, you could see it, say, maybe somebody is a criminal, or trying to do fraud or something like that. Something, it can be that, or it could be a bit milder form where you could, if I can, I don't want to label everybody who's a salesperson this way, but sometimes you, let's say, do some sweet talking to sell a product, and this sweet talking you exaggerate, or maybe not only exaggerate, you do tell some lie in it, but your intention, as I say, the words you speak are, that's what you see on the surface, but behind this is some different motivation. So my question with regards to that is, Gregory, that can we spot when somebody is doing that to us, where people are speaking, like, as I say, like sweet words, but behind that is an, let's say, dark motive, or not very, say, not totally true. What the words are not totally true, what they're saying behind it.
As is very well known, there are many of such scenarios that abound, where on the one hand, what they say is not what they mean. But it all depends on the listener or on the receiver to examine what he or she has heard, to examine in order to find the motive. For it is the motive behind that really counts. So the exercise depends on the listener to find out what the motive force is. Only based on the motive will that person make decisions or respond. If the motive is of good volition, then one may sort of, respond likewise. Otherwise, one may hold aloof. The challenge has always been to find out what the motive is. But through experiencing, through examining a scenario, many persons before long are able to find out the true motive in spite of the cleverness of the words or of the intellect.
Thank you, Gregory. I actually have a question from a listener, but I'm not quite able to make sense of it. I'll just say what they say. It says, how do we fashion our thoughts and words when in action? And then they give an example, which I'm not quite sure how sort of it makes this clear. So it says, for example, when you're running late and cannot find your car keys, So, so let me just say the question again. How do we fashion our thoughts and words when in action? For example, when you're running late, you cannot find your car keys. So,
It's a very clear question. How should one fashion one's thoughts? As is usual, one should make preparations. There is no need to leave things to the last moment. If one takes each moment as a challenge, there is always a need to make preparation because one is not sure of precisely what the future will be. Therefore, there is the need to always prepare, arrange things in such a way that it will minimize confusion when the need arises. So, the general advice is for one to be on the alert. For one to be on the alert, not only intellectually, but also intuitively. That is the biggest challenge that the personality faces. As long as the personality strives with all one's energy to be intuitively alert and also intellectually alert, many a challenge of the future can already be taken care of. It is when there has been no preparation in the form of this continuous alertness that many things take one by surprise and bring one down.
thank you again, Gregory, for your answer. I've got another question. This time it's about, the, let's say, the impact or the influence of the media with films and, I guess, even news stories. They obviously, some of them you could say have an agenda when we listen to the news or maybe even watch a film or something, and I guess they are trying to influence us. So, do you think, what I want to ask is the media really that powerful that it can, let's say, affect a lot of people? And yeah, basically, I could ask that: is the media so powerful that it can actually influence a lot of people?
Whether it be the media, whatever it is that we come across or that assail us, those things must be examined. And through examination, one comes to finer and finer judgment. The problem has always been to take everything without examination. And the bigger problem is to act on something without even understanding the motive force behind what has been passed up to you. As long as that is still the case, then the problems persist. But no sooner has each one been on the alert and reads between the lines and examine everything that comes across his way, be it media, the so-called social media, whatever it is, as long as one is prepared to weigh these impressions, weighing these impressions not only with the intellect, but allow these impressions to sink through one's intuitive perception to the spirit, then the spirit itself is able to weigh very thoroughly these impressions in accordance with the laws of nature or the laws of creation, and gets back as quickly as possible. The problem has always been many do not strive to weigh with their intuition. They hold it in the intellect and believe whatever has been passed on to them without questioning. They are very quick when it is something that has to deal with their personal weaknesses. And therefore, you find gossips abound. All the negative things abound in great multitude because that is what they themselves carry. For it will require so much energy or strength to weigh these things objectively. And therein lies the problem. As long as man weighs everything, not only intellectually but also intuitively, then the possibility of errors are minimized. And before long, such weighing will be so swift that he or she need fear no error anymore. But there must always be a beginning.
Again, thank you, Gregory, for your answer there. Just following on what you're saying there, you know, let's say let's say, I'm going to use the word control. Let's say we are sort of in control of our own selves, but not obviously of others. And then, you know, what others are thinking, what others are saying. So how can we protect ourselves or prevent ourselves being influenced by others, let's say, with the horrible thoughts of others? How can we prevent that?
We have just discussed that whatever impression assail us has to be weighed carefully. And to add to that, I will read from the work In the Light of Truth, the Grail Message, the forward on the last part of For Your Guidance. Therefore awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you are truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Whatever assails us, whatever impression reaches us, we have to weigh in order to come to a personal conclusion. There must be personal conviction. If there is no conviction, then where is the knowledge? As long as we do not weigh, as long as we lack the personal conviction, then influences from without can easily overcome our states of judgment. Because in that case, we have a scenario where, due to indolence of the spirit, also of the intellect, we do not wish to check things out very carefully. One will find out that as long as one practices personal conviction by weighing all those things which assail you, by weighing not only intellectually but also intuitively, that the time will then arrive when one becomes very certain that in accordance with the laws through which the personality has come into existence, some things cannot be as many have said it will be. That becomes a personal conviction, which conviction can stand the storms when those storms arise, maybe those storms in form of impression or in form of political or economic woes.
Gregory, so what you've said there, it means we just have to face whatever is thrown at us by, examining it. But is there a way to sort of block it out and not have to face it, or is that not? That's not realistic.
How can you tell what is thrown at you is not beneficial if you do not weigh it?
Okay, so you have to experience and sort of live through it, whatever it is, rather than try and run away or avoid.
Well, the way of experiencing is to examine what has been thrown at you. The possibility is there that what has been thrown at you could be of benefit, but you just ignored it.
Thank you for that. I've got a question again from the listener. It was coming from the topic, the discussion we were having about the media. So the question is the media spiritually responsible for what they disseminate? I'll just say it again. Is the media spiritually responsible for what they disseminate?
When the word media is used, we have a piece of information which started from somewhere. And along the line, there are a set of people, or along the channel, those who sort of enhance, add to it, or subtract from it, and pass it along to others. Each of those participants in that scenario, they are shareholders because either they passed it on without examining before passing it on, and they are not sure how it will affect others, or they have examined it and have found it very beneficial. So whoever that has taken something and has passed it on one way or the other is some form or the other a shareholder in the activity, and in accordance with responsibility bears some responsibility. That responsibility may be physical or non-physical, but that responsibility is there. For if that piece of information from the media, if you withheld it in your own personal conviction, sensing is going to cause a lot of conflagration somewhere, then you did not allow it to go on to cause war, whatever it is, or confusion, then you also bear a responsibility, which responsibility only means you only desire that which is noble, which will strengthen others, not that which will cause confusion and the downfall of others. Whatever the case, each participant bears responsibility.
Thank you again, Gregory, for your answer. Is a great deal of mankind's problem linked to being sinful in thought?
Can you come again, please?
Yes, it's a question that I have got from my colleague. So it says, is a great deal of mankind's problems linked to already being sinful in thought?
Well, that is more of an observation of would one call it? The source first is the thoughts. And as long as these thoughts are ignoble, as long as these thoughts are not in accordance with the will of one's creator, then these thoughts are ignoble. That means they tend to demean other fellow travelers who, like us, are striving to come to maturity in order to go back to their origin as fully fledged, self-conscious human spirit. So we have the scenario in which the thoughts, being heavy, chain many others who reciprocates or who vibrates at that same level. These thoughts tend to hold them down because they open themselves to these thoughts. And in doing that, are unable to sever themselves when the time comes in order to rise higher. Because they are unable to sever themselves, the nature of the thoughts, which is so heavy, that becomes a sin. For what is expected is that human spirits, having come here, are able to experience, mature, and ascend higher. So whatever is there that is unable to make the human spirit refine themselves in accordance with the will of their maker becomes a sin. And very sadly, that is what one finds around in many places. There is no support for another. What one finds is war, rumors of war, the procurement of armaments, which armaments only help to destroy societies, not to build societies, not to be helpful to societies.
Thanks again, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Blessed Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And the topic we're discussing tonight is how words and thoughts matter. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in the UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you'd like to get a copy of the Grail message or want some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that: www.grail, GRAIL, message, MESSAGE.com. Gregory, we were talking just before what I said now about the radio show, that the problems of mankind are linked to the sinful thoughts. Now, can we start, let's say, turning away from that, or start redeeming, let's say, from these sinful thoughts and words or deeds, by developing some, thinking in a pure way? Just is there a way where we can just move away from, this, let's say, dark world, because in a way it looks like we are just surrounded by it, and only maybe few people want to move away from such a thing. So, is there where we can do something about this world, and to turn it around?
Of course, there is a way. The first way there is the will. The will to move away from such. And the will to move away stems from the fact that it is we ourselves who, one way or the other, have precipitated or produced these dark thoughts, these wicked thoughts. For example, instead of us to assist our neighbor by giving assistance in form of hospitals, we provide to them armaments of war. These external deeds first spring up in our thoughts. It only means that if we do not allow these thoughts to arise within us, by keeping the hearts of our thoughts pure in accordance with the will of our Maker, the will of our Maker and the love of our Maker, who gave the examples when he was asked, "Who is my neighbor?" And he gave the example of the Good Samaritan. That example, which shows how we should vibrate in the assistance of our neighbor. With such thoughts, we are able not only to strengthen ourselves, because in doing that, those ignoble thoughts which surround us will find no homogeneity. That means those ignoble thoughts will not resonate within us. And if they do not resonate, there will be no connecting point. Then, although we have some of these ignoble thoughts around, they do not touch us. Means, though one is in the valley of darkness, one fears no evil, because one does not give any connection to evil. Now one can understand the psalmists in their words and in their thoughts. So the key here is that produce no evil thoughts, produce no ignoble thoughts, always consider thoughts of purity, of support for one's neighbor. In return, many others who are incarnate like us, and also others who are not in flesh also harbor such pure thoughts will, in their activities, channel their volitions towards us. In such a way, we are able to brighten our immediate neighborhood and spread it round by induction. So the key to the question, or the solution to the question you asked, is keep the hearth of your thoughts pure. By so doing, one will bring peace and happiness about.
Thank you again, Gregory, for showing us how we can go about this, you know, get out of this situation that we're in. One thing occurred in my head when you were answering this question. What it sounded like is that everything is in our own hands. Our fate, our life, our future is always totally in our hands. And then I wondered, what about the Almighty, the Creator? Does He not have some influence or say in the future, or is it everything only in our hands?
Yes, everything is in our hands, but for the power which the Almighty grants us, the decision is ours, but the power to activate the decision, that power is neutral. How we direct it is in our hands. If we direct that power, that energy, for that which is good, through good volitions and examples, then the returns to us will be good and helpful. If, on the contrary, in our hands or in our decisions, we divert that power which is not in us, but which is neutral in nature or neutral in creation, we now divert the power through our free will to make decisions to that which is ignoble due to our personal weaknesses, which weaknesses appear as either jealousy or form some of other ignoble thing, then that decision is of no other person but us. Therein lies our responsibility, because we made that decision.
Thank you so much, Gregory. I've got another question on words. How we use words, for example. Let's say comedy. That is meaning it should be light-hearted. Comedy is meant to be light-hearted. But you always hear in the news some people are offended by some comedy, and others are not offended. And we've said the words, all our words have an impact. How can, let's say, the person who is who's a comedian, let's say, when he, does he have to be wary every moment what he says, that how it can land to some people that as offensive, and some people it's acceptable to them? Everybody's different. What I'm trying to say is almost somebody will always be offended by some words when it's a comical thing. So, in a way, can we have comedy without any harm? Or is it always somewhere somebody going to feel harmed with comedy?
Like we have mentioned in the past, or even in this session we are in, it is the motive. Words have meanings. As with any scenario, it is the motive behind, what lies behind it that counts. Many a time in comedy, one wishes, or the comedian wishes to throw light on specific scenarios in other parts of the world in quotes a laughable way, such that those who listen or those who are in observation first need to examine what is impacting on them to discover the motive of this comedian, what he or she wishes to impact. So it is the motive that counts. If the motive is of ignoble character, then the comedian bears responsibility. Many other person who may be listening may open himself or shut himself to the impressions which assail him or her. And as long as one does not, strive to understand the motive, then one does not understand the purpose of a particular joke or a particular comedian, why these things are mentioned. And for many, it is very educative, because in that particular scenario, you see things in a different light, albeit sometimes exaggerated.
Thank you for that, Gregory. And continuing with that topic of comedy, you see some comedians, swearing, and in that sort of whatever, if you want to use the word exaggerated for it, is that an acceptable thing in that situation, or one should never ever need to swear?
It is quite remarkable that comedians are picked out when it comes to so-called swearing. Politicians swear. Religious leaders, they swear. Mention it. There's always swearing almost in innumerable places. Why then are comedians then picked out, when those who claim to know the law are the ones who swear most? Comedians have their own shortcomings. What one may say in this: let him or her who has never sworn in his or her life cast the first stone. By swearing, one is referring not only in words, but also in thoughts. Many of us swear in our thoughts, but hold it back before we verbalize it. So it is only informative when we have many a comedian put into words many of those things which have carried within us most of the time, such that in examining these things, we may move away from it or we may desist from it.
Thank you again, Gregory, for that. It sort of, yeah, I didn't mean to sort of label the comedians of sort of as a specific group, just in the way they, you can make a joke without the swearing, and you can have a joke. Well, you hear jokes with the swearing. So, but yes, the point you have made is valid, because other people are also swearing, and we don't pick on those. Well, in this question, I have not picked on them. So, thank you for that. I've got a question from a listener, but before I go to that question, because I've got something similar to what the listener is asking. I mean, again, these things are very much in the news right now. We are seeing politicians, labeling certain people as terrible criminals, and stoking up division for political purposes to win popularity. And we saw just as a few days ago, you can say, in the USA, where there were two mass shootings, where it seems to be the result of hatred, of, let's say, a particular group of people. And so my question is it really true that when the certain politicians are labeling people, certain people, let's say that they are considered unwelcome, let's say, and then as a result of that, people who have the similar, maybe have hateful wishes towards those sort of people, now start acting out in a violent manner, to try and cause, basically, I don't know if they think they're solving anything by killing people, but somehow it leads to the violence. So my question about this is, are the politicians who are making such statements, are they the real people behind this violence, or is it that something that was already there, people believed in this already, and suddenly by this being stated by the politician, they're now using that as an opportunity to act out what they wanted to do in the first place?
Some of these things are extreme exaggeration. Extreme exaggeration, and for those who lack conviction because they did not examine the facts, those particular people are very quick to act in destroying others. It is very true that the masses, because they lack conviction, we say Hosanna today, and the following day, the same hands and goodness that has blessed them, they will say crucify, because they have never examined the facts. So they lacked the conviction. And when you lack the conviction, you cannot give someone what you do not have: patience and understanding. So we have people who are high up authorities, as they like to claim, whether even the time of Christ, when one of them said, if you support this man, then you are not a friend to Caesar. The same thing happens about 100 years ago, or less than that, where groups of people were labeled and systematically brought to one place to be exterminated. These are facts because they happened. And it's only left for humanity to examine everything that comes across them. such that the storms, when it arises, they are able to reject. But one can already see the scenario where those in high offices already labeled others, just as it happened last century, where many were labeled and exterminated. It hasn't changed. So one should become very weary when people in high offices make statements, the authenticity of which they themselves can provide no consistent evidence. On the contrary, many only speak in such fashion only because they themselves carry such weaknesses deep within. And they now smear others who are trying to make a decent living. For you yourself must be a bad person when you are always pointing out that others are bad and you cannot provide any evidence.
Thank you, Gregory. Now I can ask you the question from the listener. It's a double question, actually, but I'll just take the first one first. How does the words spoken by a political appointee reflect the collective decision of the electorate? I'm going to repeat that. How does the words spoken by a political appointee reflect the collective decision of the electorate?
Actually, you said, how does the words of an appointee, whether it's political or not,
Yeah.
reflect the collective decision of the electorate? When it is said collective, it only means you have thoughts of similar nature. For if there are thoughts of dissimilar nature, then there will be no influence because they are dissimilar. So if you have a group of people or a collection of people with similar thoughts, those thoughts are attached to them because they must have accepted some of these thoughts without examining them, or those thoughts came from within them out of indolence or out of jealousy. And these thoughts cling very tightly to them. What then happens is that someone who, like them, in their indolence, wish to make a point out of it and verbalizes, and then it becomes either crucify or hosanna. That is what one observes again and again. These features are the same, whether it be in the economic arena or in the political arena. Many do not have firm decisions. They only pick something in their thoughts and they resonate with it because they haven't examined any facts. They agree with it. Only when the damage has been done will they come to reflect very carefully. And the question is, did we do this? But they themselves are shareholders. But one doesn't think once you go into it, because, like he said, by their activities, they reveal how they stand. And when they reveal how they stand, by their thoughts or by their activities or by their works, we shall know them and know where they belong.
Thank you again, Gregory. And in fact, the second question, in a way, you've covered it now, but I will just say it to you. It's like a, how can I say? I'll just say the question, and then I don't think you need to respond, but I will say it. Do the words spoken by a political appointee not let me start again. Do the words spoken by a political appointee not a reflection of the collective decision of the electorate? So I don't know if you want. Did you hear what I said there, Gregory?
One's response is, once you remove these words, political appointee and electorate and all that, all one needs to observe is the laws of attraction of homogeneity, where we have people of similar thoughts coming together. If those thoughts are of a noble nature, then it will ennoble them. If those thoughts are of a destructive nature, it will cause warfare, as we have seen in the past. There are some who, in their nature, like guns, and therefore they will be clamoring for guns, for armament, because that is what they themselves enjoy. There are some who, by their nature, they have cultivated violence. Of course, to indulge in violence, they may require guns or may require certain other armaments. There are some others who the flesh is their weakness. Weakness in the sense that they like to eat. So they eat so much that it becomes something else. They are addicted to it. There are others who like to drink, and they drink to extreme. There are others who it's women. They want to cluster around, and they spend the whole of their lives doing that until it dawns on their intuition. So whether it be political or not, or economic or not, it is only a manifestation of that law of the attraction of homogeneity. So the homogeneity in this case is so-called the electorate, because they harbor such. And then somebody now gives form, a verbal form to it, and speaks it out. But that doesn't mean that along the line that everyone was cognizant of the extent of what they now hold as their decisions. Most of the time, people just agree without asking. For if they have examined these things very rigorously, many of these thoughts will vanish.
Thanks again, Gregory, for your answer there. Giving a very comprehensive picture there. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdushin. And the topic we're discussing tonight is how words and thoughts matter. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or want some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that: www.grail, GRAIL, message, MESSAGE.com. Gregory, another question. We've been talking about thoughts a lot, but I've got a different type of, different sort of question here on the thoughts, basically. So how can thoughts in the privacy of one's head have an effect upon the world at large around them? And I get the impression from the question is, you have a thought and you keep it within you and just in silence, and you don't verbalize it. So you just send out only these thoughts. It's sort of, let me not go there right now. So just how can thoughts in the privacy of one's head have an effect upon the world at large around them?
Well, again, thanks for that question. There is an assumption that those thoughts have arisen deep within one. But on many occasions, one has only opened up to the thoughts that assail one. If it is the thoughts that assail one, then they must have come from other places, through which one now contributes one's energy. And because they have come from other places, and you have contributed your energy, and they are flowing around, what goes around comes around. Just as it affects you, or just as those thoughts have been attracted by you, and you have contributed, so are also these thoughts attracted by others, and in an inductive way affect many others. That is one scenario. The other scenario could be that these thoughts have arisen from you. If these thoughts do not receive any further energies from you, then they may vanish because there are no things to support these thoughts from going further. If, however, these thoughts keep receiving further energies from you, further strength, then they may be there for quite some time. And before long, similar thoughts may feel attracted in accordance with resonance. Resonance, by resonance, one now is referring to the law of the attraction of homogeneity. That means thoughts from other places now impact on the thoughts which has started from you. And when they now coalesce and form something stronger, they move around. They do not remain in the same place. Why do they move around and not remain in the same place? Because creation itself is motion, vibrations, which vibrations do not remain still. but which vibrations emit energies. So these are the sort of features that one may find. What one has discussed is only a tiny tip of the iceberg. In order to have a much better perspective, the advice is for many to examine the work in the light of truth, the grail message, where further investigation can be found and the complete thoughts or the complete explanation is given.
Thank you, Gregory. I've got a question from my colleague, which it sounds to me a bit like science fiction, but I'm going to say it because I've not heard of this at all. But in recent years, some activists have protested against how telecom masts can transmit various thoughts, which can be easily picked up and acted upon by those who are weak or not on guard, and then thereby be influenced like a puppet by those controlling the masts. How can technology be misused by intellectual man? And so I'm just going to say it again. As I say, I'm not really familiar with something like this, but maybe there's something going on like this, but I wasn't aware. So in recent years, some activists have protested against how telecom masts can transmit various thoughts, which can be easily picked up and acted upon by those weak or not on guard, and thereby be influenced like a puppet by those controlling the mass. How can technology be misused by intellectual man? So, Gregory, first of all, I want to ask, are you aware of such technology being used like this?
First, one would like to respond very simply by mentioning that these masts transmit frequencies, vibrations of frequencies, which are only detectable using objects of similar nature. When that happens, we are talking of objects of similar nature like mobile phones or radio. These are radio waves of very low vibrations. And the human brain is unable to pick these radio waves of low vibrations. Were that the case, then you and I would not need to buy any phones. We could already have been sending waves to masts and then they are transmitted somewhere. We don't even need to transmit it somewhere. We just send it out and it goes anywhere. So one can understand now that they confuse electromagnetic waves of low vibrations with the sort of thoughts of human nature. Those thoughts are much finer and much more refined and operates in a slightly different realm. So one cannot say that it is the radio waves of the mass that is now influencing our thoughts. The radio waves of the mass can disturb any electromagnetic waves around us. Just as we have our phones that we use being of electromagnetic nature, and these waves can be picked out from the mass, which happens every day. In the same way that you are there in the UK, I'm in Belgium, Brussels, and yet we are able to communicate. And we needed the necessary instruments to do so. Were that not the case, then what would have happened is that you can stay in your own bedroom and be communicating by thoughts and broadcasting it by thoughts, and others are able to pick it by thoughts. So one will only ask them to examine very carefully. For only through examination can one come to personal conviction. And with conviction, then one is now certain, and all dogma and some of these so-called science fiction, which are not in accordance with reality, will vanish.
Thank you for clarifying that, Gregory. I've got to something else now, which say, can auto-suggestion also work? Um, yeah, does basically I understand auto-suggestion is like hypnosis. So basically, a person who, let's say, is who has hypnotizing a person, I guess that's what it is, by words. Can that really happen? So does hypnosis really exist in a way, through words? Can you do that? Can you hypnotize somebody with the words? And yeah, can we do this? And what's the effect of that? I mean, you're basically it's sending the words of having an effect on another person. So it's like, but it seems a bit weird that the person is not who is being hypnotized doesn't have any sort of control over themselves anymore. They have to listen. They have to do what the other person hypnotizing them tells them to do. So how can that be? How can that work?
Again, it is very surprising that many things are not examined thoroughly. Of course, the so-called hypnosis exists because there are evidence of this. So it is known that it exists. But it depends on who is being hypnotized. For those who are weak, who do not have a strong defense, then the hypnotist can have a free day. If, as they say, the hypnotist has so much power, how come they haven't prevented war? How come they do not confuse the whole nation and swing the whole nation to their power? One can only say that hypnosis is a crime, a heinous crime for that matter, because it is preying on those who are not very strong within themselves and binding them, subjecting them to some fine radiations which bind their spirit or bind their soul, and in such states causes a lot of confusion. However, to have a deep insight into what hypnosis is and why it is a crime, one will refer many to the work In the Light of Truth, where there is a particular lecture, The Crime of Hypnotism.
Thank you for that, Gregory. And dear listeners, as Gregory has mentioned, if you want to read the Grail message or get a copy for yourself, please go. You can get a copy from this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that: www.grail message message.com. I've got another question now from the listener again. This one, it says, what are the consequences of generating so much words on a concept, such as a thesis or propensity? propensity. Let me read that one again. What are the consequences of generating so much words on a concept, such as a thesis on propensity?
The idea generally on a concept is to highlight the key features to describe or to define a particular concept. Anything more than that now leads to confusion. Whenever you have too many words to describe this, then the tendency is that it becomes blurred. Blurred means there's no clarity anymore. As long as it's not made simple in the wording, then confusion abounds a lot. So that is the biggest danger. Whereas to describe a concept, there is the need to build it up gradually on a step-by-step basis. And the word concept should be rightly seen as the coming together of different things to undergo some form of metamorphosis, just as you have conception in the human way, in which the egg and the sperm come together and now prepare, it undergoes so much transformation, all right, in conception. And then you now have, from those seeds, you now have a human body. So if one holds that picture, one can already see that we are having a union of words, or whatever we care to call them, of things which now need to undergo some transformation in order to highlight what is meant or what is supposed to convey.
Thank you again, Gregory, for that. Again, another colleague of mine has sent a question to me on this topic, which is the topic tonight is how words and thoughts matter. If all is given of the Almighty, how can evil thoughts or words triumph when kind and true thoughts and words seem so to fail more often than not in today's world? So I'll say that question again. If all is given of the Almighty, how can evil thoughts or words triumph when kind and true thoughts and words seem so to fail more often than not in today's world?
What is granted from the light or from the Almighty is neutral. It is human beings, or it is the persons who appropriate what has been granted and misuse it, not use it in accordance with the will of the Maker. When one is ignorant of the will of the Maker, there, in that scenario, one is unable to make decisions which, most of the time, is agreeable to the will of the Maker. And you now have scenarios where that which would have been helpful to the human personality becomes a curse. A very simple example is that when heat or sunlight or fire is the knowledge is granted to man, one may use it for cooking. One may turn it the other way to cool things. And yet, the decision of the human spirit may be such that instead of him or her to use it for something beneficial, may want to use this same thing to harm his or her fellow human being, whom, like him, is struggling to understand how to put things together, is struggling to understand how to put things together so as not to harm any other person. That the human being will not use that which is beneficial from his maker on himself to harm himself, but to use it to harm others, already tells very clearly that what he or she is doing is not right. For if it were right, it would have used it on himself first. So everything depends on the decision. For it is the decision, first in the thoughts, first in one's intuitive thoughts, before it flows to the intellect, where it is now acted upon physically, and you now see it as deeds. That is where the problem is.
Thank you, Gregory. I've got another question, which is so different from all the questions so far, but I will read it out to you. Where is the helper promised by the Son of God Jesus Christ and announced as such, the Spirit of truth, the Comforter, who will be with you for all time? These words hold such promise in the myriad of words used in books and in daily life. How shall we recognize the real one? I'm going to read that again. Where is the helper promised by the Son of God, Jesus Christ, and announced as the Spirit of truth, the Comforter, who will be with you for all time? These words hold such promise in the myriads of words used in books and daily life. How shall we recognize the real one?
That is a pertinent question and has a very simple solution. By their works we shall know them. It means whatever comes across us, we must strive to understand the motive behind it. We must examine these works, and therefore there is a need to examine works not only of science, but also of literature, of religion, of technology, and of even what we have been referring to, the work in the light of truth, the grail message. In the process of examination, many a thing will ring a bell. If what rings a bell deep within you is in accordance with that which lies within you, which is alive, then it will resonate, and then you will recognize. For we are able to know what is helpful or what has come from a helper only through the works, which works comes through personal conviction, not only intellectual conviction, but also intuitive conviction. So by their works, when we examine all this, we are able to differentiate that which is of tactical importance or of tactical value or of strategic value, and to find out whether it is helpful spiritually or not. For what Christ meant was basically spiritually. And here we have the walk in the light of truth, and we are enjoining you to examine these things thoroughly and intuitively and make your conclusion whether it's helpful to the spirit or not. If it is helpful to the spirit, then find values in it which will assist you in making progress in your personal lives.
Thank you again, Gregory. I think we're going to end the show at this point now. No point going to a further question now. Thank you, listeners, for joining us tonight. Hope you found the discussion interesting and helpful. The topic we discussed tonight was how words and thoughts matter. And I think we did successfully, illustrate that it does matter. The words and thoughts do matter, and how we should basically be wise in what we, not only what we say or think, but it's not only our own future here; it's the whole world, that we create through our words and through our thoughts. So thank you, listeners, for joining us tonight. We'll be back again next Tuesday with another topic. Gregory, anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Well, we wish them a beautiful week.
Thank you for that. And dear listeners, as Gregory has been saying throughout the show, if you are interested to examine the Grail message, then you can go to this website and get a copy from there if you like, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that: www.grail, GRAIL, message, MESSAGE.com. And Brother Siayome, I'm sure, will be coming up on the next show, so please stay tuned for that. All the best, everyone. God bless. Take care.
No cigarette smoking in my room. Yeah. I Stephen Marley, Bless FM radio, play good tune.
Them a wonder how bless radio do this. I see them come with some go. Future profit tell them we locks get longer. He dead not it on it. Bless radio, you don't know. Pop the good music. Play them.
African people, if we would like to own our own schools, our own businesses, our own community development and skill centres, our own banqueting suites, police our own communities, and stop knife and gun crimes, give £1 or more per week to the Bade Fund. Please give generously today, and remember, our children and grandchildren's future is our responsibility. The Bade Fund, our future is our business. To contribute to the Bade Fund, go to www.baedfund.co.uk. So that's www.baedfund.co.uk. Click on Donate Now, where you will find the details, or click on the PayPal section in the header box. The Bade Fund, the Bade Fund, the Bade Fund, the Bade Fund.
Many more will have to die. Don't ask me why.
Enroll now 9-week holistic herbal health course. Learn traditional African concepts of health, the art and science of nutrition and herbal medicine, detoxification, importance of sleep, natural remedies for stress, herb walk, herbal preparation, tea tasting, microgreens growing, and
Yo,
Hello, Siayome.
hello.
Hello, Siayome. It's Saad. Welcome.
Yo, Saad, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Um, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Um, I, I just would like to get Leon actually to set you up. So,
Okay.
but
You know what? I'm speaking through my mic and having to hear you through my mic
oh,
at the
okay,
moment.
okay, all
And
right,
I'm sure that ain't what's supposed to be happening here. Hang
okay,
on, let me see if
okay.
I can put the microphone on. Are you talking?
I can tell. Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, but why can't I hear you
Mm.
without having it come through the microphone? Because I got it in the headphone jack, but
Yes.
I'm supposed to have it in a. But there's only. Wow, this is not gonna go down too good if I don't sort this out.
Okay.
Um,
Let me see if I can get someone to work.
say it again.
Can I ask Leon to help? See if I.
Yeah, hang on a minute. Let me get my headphones on here.
Yeah, just a second.
Um, you there?
I'm there. I'm there. Oh,
Okay. Now the thing is, so you can hear me clearly.
I can hear you loud and clear.
So I'm wondering if I need the mic at all.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, is there somewhere you can get? I think Bless has to look at this.
Yes. Let me get him.
All right. Thank
Just
you,
hold
Sean.
on. Just say some few words while I'm doing that.
Okay. What? I'm on the air now? Yes. Greetings, y'all. Think I'm on air? If I am, this is Brother Siayome. The Cosmic Root Show this evening. I'm doing this from a different location, so I trust y'all can hear me. Um, yeah. So what's actually happening here? Yo, I'm speaking now, but it's without microphone, Bliss. Yo, I'm live. Well, for those who are tuning in, and if you're not, you'll be able to get a copy of the show after it's recorded on YouTube. But
You're
yes,
sitting in your yard relaxing now, innit? You're a lucky guy.
oh man, brother, it's experience. It's a new experience, and
I'm
this
gonna
is
leave you to it, bro. I've got things to do, so I'm gonna let you get on with your show. Thanks for your listeners locked on. I'm on going and do what I gotta do. Take it
all right. Well, give
gradually.
thanks. Thank you very much, brother. We're gonna have to talk later, yeah?
Yeah, alright then, cool.
Okay. Well, yes, greetings one and all. I'm sitting in a different location doing my show this evening. And well, those of you who are tuned into YouTube live may be receiving me right now. And just sorting out a few technical things before I kind of get grooving on to this topic this evening because yes, a lot of build up and more intensity of stuff, going on. And I wanted to talk more about what's happening here from another angle, okay? Because we're dealing with a galactic year we've completed. This got activated around the 12th of July, and then from the 26th of July to the 12th of August, we're within a what is called the Lion's Gate opening up. This is relating to the activations dealing with the alignment of Sirius, the star of Sirius, aligning with the sun. Okay, you should say the son of Sirius, because Sirius is a planetary constellation within the where it's a star constellation within the sign of Cancer, the constellation of Cancer. So there's been a lot of activation and energies related around of all these intensities of energies, because we've now, speaking from the Mayan calendar perspective, and I was looking to get Galactic Clyde on here today, but I think he's being a bit busy, because we could have had a talk more and open this up more about the galactic year that we have just completed. In the Mayan calendar, we're dealing with 13 years, okay, or a 13 galactic year. And this is a year of where we've completed, I'm repeating myself a bit, we have completed a galactic year, and it's a time of purification, okay? It's a time of where there's a lot of stuff that we've been holding on to subconsciously or consciously, lined up with the personality, and when we should be really living, it's about the soul. I always talk about this on my show, consciousness, that you are the soul. You're not the body, you're not the mind, and the personality that is formulated through this developing of your mind from an early age, where your personal self-image has been, started to being developed from 0 to 7, where a lot of the impressions around you that have impacted you emotionally, this is how your subconscious has been programmed or activated, okay? And we do come over into this time with residue of past incarnation memories. Yeah, the soul contains all the memories of his prior lives. And we do have vibrational frequencies within our subconscious that we're unconscious of as well, which is what's behind the drawing to you the circumstances, the situations, and people in your life through your early ages, your early age. Because what we're under a misconception of, we believe that we come in here as a baby, as a blank slate, and we don't come in here as a blank slate. You see, this is a part of the society and the cultural conditioning of programming based on personality identification and past behavioral habits, and then parts of your circuitry gets plugged in to when you're a child, to the societal and cultural conditioning, until you grow and mature to a level of awareness in yourself where you begin to question, hang on a minute, start to question these ideas you have in your mind about yourself. When you start to wake up, to go deeper, to wake up to your soul consciousness rather than, your personality, when we're talking about your conscious self, because the conscious mind is working with the subconscious mind, okay? And the subconscious mind is the feminine, the magnetic, the emotional, the feeling aspect. And then you've got your conscious mind, which is the masculine, which is the directive, that which selects and chooses, and so forth. And your conscious mind is also playing out the role based upon the script in your subconscious. I was talking about this last Tuesday. But this is what formulates the personality, okay? Until you wake up to realize you're the being that is working through this electromagnetic vehicle, right? And you are here based on your soul's intention. What's the intention of your soul, okay? And you're here the term for God's sake, well, when you hear that term, people say, oh gosh, for God's sake, Well, what are you, or the term to be forsaken, okay? You have to understand that this is really talking about, for God's sake, that's what you're here for, your soul's sake, your God's sake, okay? And the forsaking comes from you being in resistance to your soul's sake, okay? Living, moving in the direction your soul wants you to go, yeah? Because your soul is why you're here. The intentions of the soul. The personality is a vehicle, and I'll give it an example like you're riding a horse or a man on a horse. The soul is to ride and direct the horse, symbolic of your electromagnetic vehicle, your body, okay? Your body and your mind. And you're to direct this horse where to go. But say the horse now wanted to go where it wanted to go, right? Based on its, the horse's lower, its identification to its baser desires, so to speak, its food, its whatnot, and the horse is taking you where it wants to take you rather than you taking the horse where you're directing the horse. So I'm giving that as an analogy to say that, look, you're either in harmony or in non-resistance to your soul's intention, or you are caught up identifying with this personality, which is also being termed the ego, or the what you call the me, okay? Because I did talk about last Tuesday about you actually got an alter ego. You got two egos. And if you look into the word ego, where you'll find that the word ego means I. But you have the ego with a capital E, and you have the ego with what you call it, lowercase e. Just like you have the word God spelt with an uppercase G, and you have the word God spelt with a lowercase g. You see what I mean? Which has different connotations based upon the lower and uppercase. So you got the ego with the lowercase e, which represents the me, the force I, the personality. Yeah, this personal self-image that we've constructed from when we were from a child, and background and so forth, which we then strongly began to identify with. But then that personality is playing out a script which is in the subconscious, the emotions, okay, or the feeling nature. And the subconscious doesn't think in an inductive and deductive way as the conscious mind, yeah, to be able to observe things, to be able to compare things, to also, choose and kind of come to conclusions after kind of evaluating, various factors, okay? It can select and so forth. Whereas the subconscious, it doesn't do none of that. It only receives, like the earth does. When you press a seed into the soil, the subconscious just receives what is felt and impressed upon it as true, okay? So this is why when we're in an emotional state, our subconscious is wide open. And we're easily, this is where the subconscious is easily impressed, yeah, upon, with the feeling state. And then that becomes your script, okay? And then this is what your conscious mind or your personal self-image, you're playing this role, and this is what it's acting out. But none of that is really you. Who you are is really the I, the authentic I within, which is immortal. It's eternal, okay? It works with the immutable laws of existence, yeah? The three immutable laws which I have mentioned before concerning the three great planes, okay? The spiritual plane, the mental plane, the physical plane. And the spiritual plane is where you're dealing with the three immutable laws. So when I'm saying immutable, I just had to shut the door, the balcony door, so in case you was hearing all these sounds out there, because I don't know how sensitive this mic is. But anyway, as I was saying, is that you've got, just kind of trained off my thought. But what's happening here is that you got the three great planes, the spiritual plane, the mental plane, and physical plane. And the immutable laws, meaning indestructible, unchanging. This is where your real self, your true self, your spiritual I resides, yeah? The spiritual identity. I was talking about this before. So I'm just recapping here. So the immutable laws, the indestructible principles, is that all is consciousness, all is correspondence, and all is vibration. So this, your spiritual, the authentic I, the eternal, immortal I, it works and with the immutable laws, okay? Whereas when it comes to the mind, the mental, and the physical, this is when you're dealing with immutable, which is changeable laws, transmutable laws. These are like operation tools, you know? So you got your law of polarity, you got your law of rhythm or principle of rhythm, you got your principle of causation or cause and effect, and you got your principle of gender, okay? So, and gender is there showing you that there's electro and magnetic principles you carry within yourself, which is also known when you're dealing with principles, you're dealing with a masculine, feminine, which is the subconscious, and masculine, which is the conscious, okay? So the feminine is magnetic and the masculine is electric, okay? So when we're talking about the masculine and feminine uniting, you're really talking about your conscious and subconscious, or the unconscious subconscious becoming one, okay? And then you become conscious of your subconscious. Whereas before you were unconscious of your subconscious. And I said before that subconscious means the deeper awareness, feeling awareness of your being, okay? But that is also just a part. The grander part is the I, okay? The immortal I within. So we're going through a time where we've come to an end of a cycle, a 13-year galactic cycle. This is according to the Mayan calendar. Now, because of this, what's happening is a purification. It's like coming to the end. It's coming to like when you come to an end of a cycle, there is then a purge, a purification to prepare you for the new cycle. Okay? So this is why there's a lot of intensities of energies ramping up. On the 12th of July is when we came to this end of this 13th cycle. And then from the 26th of July to the 12th of August, we've been we've just had what was it? We had a new moon recently in Leo. Okay? So this new moon in Leo is also signifying the Lion's Gate. Okay? Okay? And the number 8, when you're dealing with 8, it also corresponds. See, now I'm using the term correspondence, which is one of the immutable laws. Correspond and respond. Correspond. Respond is to answer or to reply. You respond. But co-responding, okay? You're responding together with, yeah? A synchronicity, you know? It's like this is how through correspondence, for example, another example is when they say as above, so below. The reason they're saying as above, so below through the law of correspondence is that above there are stars, okay? And there are constellations and there are suns. Stars are suns, okay? And then when you look at below, well, we are stars on earth, okay? You have you know, your souls. You see, as I already said, that soul also correlates to the word sol and solar, which is also sun, okay, S-U-N. So you have stars and earth, okay? And you also have the entire 12 constellations in the heavens as the 12 faculties within your consciousness, as also the 12 corresponding cranial nerves, okay, within your brain, okay? So there's an example of correspondence, okay? So as above, so below is also as within, so without. You see what I mean? Okay, because from the subjective realm, the objective always begins from the subjective realm. The subjective is inward, the deeper merging. And the objective is what's coming on the surface or the obvious, or now becomes an object to be seen, to be viewed, to be observed. You see what I mean? Or to be objective is to be able to look at things from a level of detachment from your own subjective reality to be able to see things, to broaden your perception, basically, to see how differently other people see things, rather than having it all kind of being, projecting from your own subjective perception. Okay, but the subjective is where everything begins. Okay, so we're dealing with an end of a cycle, which is then now purification. Yeah, it's purification. Um, is getting rid of all of that which no longer is serving you, meaning the soul. Okay. This is why the intensity of these energies are ramping up. And what's happening also is that you see, with this new moon in Leo, and as I said to you about this Lion's Gate, when it reaches 8 is the Lion card, is on the major arcane of the tarot deck. So there's another correspondence, okay? And what it is that 8 represents strength, okay? It represents balanced strength. It represents the strength. You're dealing with the divine power. You're dealing with the spiritual and the material, okay? And the source of power is always in the spiritual. But you can have 8 representing power. If one is more focused through the personality, then one's looking outside of themselves for this power. So then the power will be more into what material things are representing to the personality as power, okay? And this is where, you have the word, the number 8 also symbolizing business, money, okay? And I think in China it's one of the lucky numbers. They're very into the money, okay? And nothing wrong with that, but it's where you're coming from with it, you see? So 8 is really about the balance of power and balancing of urges more than suppressing urges, okay? This is where one has to come to realizing the integration of how their spirituality is being expressed through their physicality, okay? But in order to understand what true power is, 8 being such an intense number and also represents psychic power. It also represents some abundance, okay? It represents also medical, like medicine, seeking the cure. And it deals with the infinite energy, when the energy is just looped, there's just infinite, it's flowing, it's connected within itself, okay? So there's no end to this energy. But the thing is that with the 8, it's about inner strength, not outer so-called attachments to what we think strength's about, putting on all this muscle, for example, masculine, we think, yeah, big, the bigger, more muscly somebody is the more stronger they are. Well, the thing is that may be physical strength, but then there's certain things that go beyond physical strength, okay? Beyond physical strength, especially when you're dealing with emotional situations, okay? It doesn't matter about your physical strength here now. It's a matter about your emotional maturity and your emotional endurance or strength. Yeah, emotional strength. Some people don't have strong emotions, so to speak, very weak, But what I'm saying here also is that these are correspondence to the letter 8, to the number 8, okay? And 8 is really about the balance of power, because you're dealing with wholeness here and balance. And the balance is only found when you seek the true source of where power comes from. And that true source of power comes from within. So when you realize that the true source of power is the spiritual, then this is what now we're dealing with when they're talking about manifesting our desires, on the physical plane, where it becomes visible, where you can, it is acted out, played out, you experience it. Yeah, what you're creating, your reality on the physical plane. Yeah. So, and it's not about suppressing urges, because 8 is a very intense, also an intense number. Okay. It works strong with ones. Okay. Because ones are also strong, intense numbers, or vibrational frequencies, I should say. Right. So, so with when the sun, what we gonna have when it reaches, because the moon was at, I think it was at 8 degrees Leo. Okay, this is where we had our new moon. So it's new energy. Okay, and it also was representing the opening of the lion's gate. And you know that Leo represents the heart, and the heart is also symbolic of your subconscious, especially also when you hear in society conscious or social consciousness, you hear the term gut feeling or gut level. That's society's term for the psychologist's term for the unconscious or the subconscious. Okay, and when you hear the heart, well, the heart is representing, you could say, the heart chakra, because energies do come up through this, because you got the thymus gland there, which is related to your youthfulness and your growth and, you know, your immune system. Okay, but it's also representative of your subconscious, the unconscious subconscious. You see, so we're entering also into this portal of the lion's gate, and the lion's gate, whoa, and you're dealing with fire. So some may be experiencing a lot of heat. I've been having some burning up in my chest. Certain things coming up with certain circumstances and situations, which you realize, dag, I want to purge that out of my heart. I want to purify myself from all of these programs, these emotional attachments, based from the personality level, that keeps you stuck in these lower, denser energy vibrations, you see? And, you know, when you're having a lot of personality demands, you know, ego demands and all of that type of stuff, and it's, you know, it's against your soul, yeah? Because as I said, also when you're dealing with Leo, you're dealing with connecting with your own inner unique light. Inner unique light, your own inner light. You see, when we look at the sun, we look at the outer and we see this light, yeah, or this illuminating orb, where in reality there's no fire in it. There's no fire in the sun. It's nuclear fusion going on in the sun, helium and hydrogen. You know what I mean? You know, the transformation of hydrogen into helium, or helium into hydrogen, but you know what I'm saying? It's these two gases. And therefore, you're dealing with the nuclear fusion taking place in the sun, which is where you're getting the radiation from. No fire, but the radiation of nuclear energy, okay? And this is why the sun radiates its heat, yeah? Because you're dealing with faster moving electrons, photons, faster moving atoms, yeah? Photonic levels on the atomic level. So, but you've got an inner light. You see what I mean? And this is what Leo actually represents when you get that maturity of the Leo, you know? Just like you got a lion cub, and then it grows into maturity, yeah? Until its mane is fully grown and it's a mature lion, okay? So you've got, you know, the story of Simba can give you that, where he had to find the light within himself. Simba had to find the truth within himself. He had to find who he really was, yeah, after his father passed. And then his father came to him in a dream, which is really now through the intuitive subconscious, okay, to communicate with him, to remind him of who he is. So he's looking up at the stars, and as above, so below. You see, he was looking up at the stars at night, and then he was to wake up to the star within him, the light within him. And this is what Leo is when it's matured. It wakes up to, it realizes its own inner light. You see what I mean? And this is what we're here to connect with this new energy, your own inner light. You see? And this is where the heart, because Leo's about the heart. And opposite Leo, the polarity point of Leo is Aquarius. Okay? And Aquarius is about valuing, waking up and valuing your diamond self, your own unique individuality, and not conforming to the society consensus, social, cultural conditioning, okay? All the societal stuff about how, you should be and how this should be, I talk kind of in a way where I don't get too personal, but it's like, Aquarius is about, look, man, waking up to the unique individuality of its own self, of one's own soul. We're not here to be conforming to man-made beliefs and stuff that just takes you astray from your soul, keeps you stuck in the personality, personal, person, mask, when this is just a construct of you, it's a projection, okay? But again, I've said many times before about the projector and the projection, okay? So to stay on track with this evening, it's a thing where we've come to a completion of a cycle, in a galactic sense. So there's things coming up, wholly with intensity, as we also go through the situation, the circumstances of the beliefs we're holding on to, the stories that we formulate, or the narrative that we've internalized and believed is true, and keep ourselves stuck in a certain cycle. When we're dealing with a purification, we're coming to a close here for a new. Now, what I'll add to this is that we've been having a lot of activity in Capricorn and Cancer. And Capricorn has got Saturn in there and Pluto. Now, I know this may not make much sense to folk who's not into astrology and may think it's not godly, or think it's just some pseudoscience, or, what I said at the beginning about the Mayan calendar and why I'm talking about the end of a cycle here. Because the Mayan calendar is dealing with what's bringing in this new cycle. You see, it's the end and the beginning of a new cycle. 13 years, okay? Because there's 13 kins or 13 signs within the Mayan. Now, in the what you could say in the what you call it, in the what they would say the Western astrology, which didn't originate with Western, but anyway, they talk about the 12. But there is the 13th sign in there, and it's 5 degrees. It's at the late degrees of Scorpio, okay? For 5 degrees, and they call it Euphicrius, which is the snake handler. But the thing is that it still works within the even proportion of the 12 sections of the heavens, so to speak. Yeah. So you're still dealing with the 12 houses, or you're still dealing with 12 signs with a 5 degree aspect of the 13th sign. Okay. So it does correlate. And that 13th sign also deals with the 13th tribe. If you're dealing with correlating this with scriptures, you'd understand there was 12 tribes, but then there was a 13th tribe, right? Called Diane, which was the only female child that, Israel had, okay? The 12 tribes of Israel. So anyway, these are correspondences, these are correlations. What I'm saying here now is that the energy has been ramping up throughout this July, man. I mean, and everyone's going to experience this very differently, but it's been very intense, and a lot of changes in different areas that have been very important in people's lives have been going on, have been happening. People being laid off, people, issues with, family, when you're dealing with, You know, I said about whether it's siblings, children, um, the mother, because you got the polarity point of Cancer, which is the polarity point of Capricorn, which is to deal with the mother, okay, and to deal with the emotions and feelings, okay, and all, and then children and their emotional states and all of this type of stuff. You see, the emotions coming up, and when you're now dealing with Capricorn, you're dealing with time. Capricorn represents time and being able to see through the veil of time, but also to be able to step into another time, okay? Because Capricorn represents the porthole of um, the physical incarnations, okay? 1 second, I got Galactic Clyde here. We just called in. Clyde.
Yes, greetings.
Greetings, Clyde. How you doing, brother? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you good.
Yeah. Listen, I'm doing a show. I'm on the radio right now, right?
Oh, you on the radio? Okay.
Yeah, but check. I'm somewhere else, right? So people can I was calling you to call in to talk because I know you're very much astute into the Mayan calendar. And you're aware of, you know, the 13th year, the end of this the year we're dealing with, the galactic year, and the purification we're going through, and to start a new cycle, okay? And how this correlates with the destiny of our souls more so than the being caught up in the lower density energies of the personality, yeah? And why the purification, and we've also had a new moon in Leo, where we're dealing with the Lion's Gate portal, where, you know, you're familiar with that, yeah?
The new moon is a double new moon.
Okay.
We have in, going to Leo. The double new moon is normally, I think it's every 32 months.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Are you online though?
yeah, I'm online right now. I'm live, brother.
Okay.
Okay. So, all right. So, I've just been breaking things down about, you know, the impact of the intensity of the energies that have been coming up and what have, you know, people been experiencing. And, you know, I've been doing it from also an astrological aspect of what's been happening with Cancer, the lunar, the solar eclipse, and then a partial lunar eclipse in Capricorn, and dealing with the new moon we've just had recently in Leo, where the energy is changing. And you know, I was talking about also all of those retrogrades we've been happening and having, and how this is bringing up a lot of things, shadow stuff, and it's all about the transformation for the growth and expansion of the soul. But how we can also be resisting that through getting caught up in, you know, the personality stuff, and you know, a lot of things being kicking off. But then this evening, I decided to talk about, you know, the end of the year from the Mayan calendar aspect. And I did call you up earlier to ask you to call in, and look, you've called me back, you know what I mean, while I was on the show. But I was going to let you know what was happening. But you're live now, brother. So,
Well, greetings to everybody, and yes, Galactic Clyde. Yeah, in connection to the Mayan calendar, you will enter a new cycle. This cycle, it's called the White Wizard.
yes, White Wizard spell?
Yeah, the
Yes.
White Wizard. Yeah.
White Wizard, okay.
And so the White Wizard sets us up, and it's a magnetic wizard. So it's a beginning of the cycle that's going to take us to the next 52 years.
Okay.
In that sense, it's much bigger than that in terms of the cycle because of the 2012-2013 phenomena.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the cycles within cycles, yeah? Basically.
Yeah, cycles within cycles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Continue, brother. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a very, very interesting time in terms of the deeper consciousness or awakening. You know, especially when we talk about the White Wizard, we're talking about deeper aspect, the whole concept. Most people don't want to hear the word magic or wizard because that's supposed to be some kind of kids game or kids study or kids, you know, story. But
Harry Potter stuff.
Wizardry and science and the mystical aspects are very much in connection, because it means that we're moving on, we're charting new waters.
Right.
In that sense.
Okay. Would you in just injecting there, we can also talk about soul consciousness. You know?
Yeah, soul consciousness, unity consciousness.
Yes.
Because it's magnetic wizard, so it draws that unity consciousness.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, so continue, brother. So this purification then, because, you know, the purging, all of the stuff coming up, and look, a lot of fire in the heart and emotions, and I was talking before you called. I was saying that, you know, the heart also symbolizes the unconscious, subconscious. When we say the gut feeling, that's, you know, societal consciousness telling us about really, you know, your heart, you know. But in the Bible, the heart is symbolized in your unconscious, you know, and the subconscious. Mm-hmm.
Yes, the subconscious, or what they call the Christ consciousness,
Christ,
the God consciousness.
Mm.
Interesting that all the blood, this is now science now is saying, all the blood pass through the heart every 3 minutes. All the blood in the body pass through the heart.
Yeah.
Every 3 minutes.
Okay.
That's quite deep.
Yeah, man, I hear you. But it's interesting you said that, because you know, we've been under this impression, because I came across some information where a brother from, I can't remember which part in Africa, the continent he was from, but he was talking some science, right, differently to the way Western science has portrayed various things, and for example, the heart. We've been told that the heart is a pump, and it's the heart that's pumping the blood around the body. Yeah? But that's one, yeah, this is what we've, you know, how it's been said to us in Western science, for example. But what this brother was saying was that, well, the blood moves around the body. It has its own volition. It moves. The heart actually operates as a dam, which is why it's got as a dam, you know, like it's got its valves to let the blood flow through, but it more operates as a dam rather than a pump. Have you heard anything such as that?
The word dam there, I would say dam as in filter, because you know,
Well, yes, okay.
Blood, you got the impure blood.
Yeah.
And the pure blood, so the heart is sending out pure blood and filter the impure.
Yeah, right.
So when the impure comes to the heart, it gets filtered, and then the pure blood comes out. So always the blood that's returning, similar to what's happening in the house with the boiler. Your boiler symbolizes the heart in that sense, because it takes the water and it's channeling it around the house to keep the heat in the house.
Right, that's right.
So the heart generates heat, it generates vibration, it generates energy of love as well.
Right.
And the heart is symbolic of the soul,
right,
as well as the sun. It's one and the same, because the sun represents the physical aspect of what we call the soul on a spiritual level. And so the heart is both a physical and a spiritual mechanism within the body.
Yes.
Just like the sun in the world is both physical and spiritual.
Yeah.
And hence that the religious writing about Christ and Christianity is based on the S-U-N. Most people are caught up in the S-O-N.
Yeah. And it's always outside of you, this theological interpretation, right? Which keeps it on this physical personality level rather than the spiritual internal inner. But what you use the word filter, I would say yes, that's a better. I would say I'd prefer that interpretation, even though I understood what the brother was explaining, but he used the term dam, and that's not really.
The dam is still a filter, because even the dam, it holds back some of the trash that's coming down the river, and let more of a pure water come to, so it works as a filter. Yes, but when you said dam, most people wouldn't. The concept of filter would be more appropriate.
Very true.
Opposed to dam, because then it means that it's like almost, when we think of dam, we think about something that stops.
Yes.
Really movement. But the dam is really filtering the impurities, and so the pure can pass through in that sense.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, for real.
So yes, it's a filter.
Yeah.
And it also filters the ignorance as well from a metaphysical standpoint. People of the heart, they would deal with the love, and that's where somebody where much more heart take on issues of hatred and transmute it into love. That's where the filter comes in again. You take all the hatred and all the negative stuff and you filter it through for the positive things to come down,
Yes.
You know?
Yes, brother.
So that's why you end up with leadership, because the leader, when with the heart represents the aspects of leadership, it's also filter all the ignorance so that the wisdom and the consciousness can manifest itself.
Yeah. The soul consciousness can manifest itself.
Society
Yeah.
should more consider the whole thing of filter of the negative so that the positive, but what we have is the other way around in society.
Yeah. Yeah. They want to filter out the positive and give it more negative,
Yeah. So the sun operates like that, to where it takes up also the water from the river. It doesn't take up the impurity, it takes up the water and filter it, and then it comes back to us as rain.
Rain, yeah.
So that rain, that energy that comes up from the river, when you see that mist is coming up, the impurities doesn't go up. It's filtered. It's almost like work as a what you call it, like a distiller, where it takes up all the mist, and then it comes back down to us as rain in that sense. So yes, it's a filtration process that goes on.
Right. So that's, for the listeners, hear that, because the heart is not actually a pump. How we've been led to believe, So with that more of a deeper esoteric view, and knowledge, it expands your heart, because now, because with what you're saying, the impurities now, when we're talking about the heart being a filter now we can understand that, when we're dealing with moving into the heart chakra, for example, and we know that the superimposement of the thymus gland in the chest, and where we're dealing with our immune system is there. And when we're going through emotional purging, it can be experienced as, this activity in the heart, man, and this fire burn, for example, and I feel that is part of that purging, that purification. You have to let it come up. You can't suppress it, but you have to let it come up and just feel into it and not judge yourself. And then when you're being still with it enough, you'll even experience the transmutation. Yeah? The transmutation where you feel the energy in your heart just expand now, where it's just burnt out and purified, all of that low energy, because the blood also carries the thoughts. The blood also carries...
It's like the conveyor belt to carry all of the minerals and things like that.
But also...
The body.
Okay, but also with the thoughts being electric and the feelings being magnetic, and how the thoughts are also impressed in our blood, which what I'm saying. So that's circulating around, and we can have toxic thoughts and toxic feelings, or we can have pure thoughts and pure feelings. Based upon the nature of the thoughts, we can feel, when something combusts because it's toxic, but if it was pure, there would be no flame, if you get what I mean. Yeah, there's,
The word there would be circulator. A circulator is a little bit, it's sort of a pump, but it's actually a circulator keeps the circuit keeps the blood moving from one area to the other. So the heart works more of a circulator pump than just a pump. Because pump is like moving something from one area to the other. But circulator is now with allowing it to keep the flow going. When the impurity comes and then comes back, when it goes into the heart, it comes back on the other side as pure and all the way like that. So the circulator is the word that would be, the circulator pump would be the more appropriate for the heart as opposed to just a pump.
Yeah.
Because when we use a pump, it's like moving stuff from one area to another area. But no, this is circulating it as opposed to just moving from one area to the other.
And I do like the description of the filter, brother. What you added there too. So say we said a circulator filter.
Yeah.
Okay. So Clyde, I was just
I would need to have you here one day, brother, because I was just asking someone who's listening in on the live show how you're coming through, because I wanted to make sure we can hear you clear. And they're saying they can hear me clear, but they're not hearing you 100% clear. I hope it's clear. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Is it a little better?
Well, I'm trusting. I'm going to have to get some feedback in a minute.
Okay. Yeah. Also,
Go ahead.
coming up, because this month is very, let's say, what should we say about this month is very impactful in that what is not talking about when you have the double new moon or the double full moon that happens every 32 months, roughly 32, 33 months. It's a symbol of what they call the 13th moon, because that's where the moon cycle seems to change.
Yeah.
So you have the double.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last double new moon we have was in Aquarius, and this is double new moon in Leo.
All right.
It's going to run for 32 months. So the first new moon already gone through. Then we're going to come at the end of the month to the second new moon.
In Leo.
In Leo.
Yeah.
But also, what's also happening in Leo as well, we have the Venus return, which is an 8-year Venus cycle. The last time Venus was in Leo, in terms of Venus transit, we call it, is actually, we had the London riot. If anybody remember, it was 8 years ago. We had that riot in London, and that was symbolic or connected with the Venus transit.
Okay. Okay.
And we're right back into that cycle again.
Wow. And then you can feel the heights of the we can feel the heights of this energy rising though, ramping up. You know what I mean? In the way, you know, man, a lot of the volatile stuff going around. You understand me? You see? And again,
Venus and Sun is very magical in the nature of its quality, because Venus in the heavens over 8 years form a 5-point star. And
yes,
when we think about from 2011
mm-hmm.
to 2019, that's 8 years. So this is a 5-point star coming from there. So it brings a magical quality. The 5-point star is what is called the star of the magician, or what they call the Kabbalistic cross.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a cross
in
that sense.
Uh-huh.
And it's very, very, it's a very magical power in that sense that anybody is into the mysticism or magical qualities or
occult, as they would say.
Magic, I'm talking about it from a higher aspect, not the lower negative stuff that people talk about. The 5-point star is very much used and very much protective, because it's an outward protection, the 5-point star, where the 6-point star is inner protection, the hexagram.
The inner, okay, so the 5 is out,
yes,
the inner.
You got the outward protection. So men, the body of man, if we put our arms up in the air, elevated, just above what we call the symbol of the straight out cross, you would actually form the 5-point star. So man is itself a 5-point star. Men, women, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When we stretch the arm out and up a little, where you see the Da Vinci code, the Da Vinci picture, where you show man is both a circle and a square, which the Da Vinci picture, where you see that cross and the triumph and the 5-point star.
Okay.
So it's very, very, very much important to understand these secret knowledge in connection to the power of the heaven and its aspects on earth.
Yes, brother. Yeah.
And this is going to take place on the 13th of August.
Okay. Go on. Mm-hmm.
So the Venus transit is when the Sun and Venus conjunct each other, exact conjunct. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And Venus either go behind the Sun or Venus go in front of the Sun.
Yeah.
And so that takes place every 25 days.
Okay.
In that sense, and this would happen in 5 different signs. You got it in Leo, Scorpio, Capricorn, Aries, and Gemini. So this one is the Leo Venus transit.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next one would be Capricorn.
Right.
And Aries.
Right.
Then Scorpio. It skips one in the 5 very much connected with the Mayan, as we're talking about the Mayan.
Yes.
The Mayan calendar was based on also Venus, the movement of Venus as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we can go into that more. Do you have time, or do you,
Yeah, I could talk a little. I could talk with you a little.
Yeah, man, because usually they hear my advice, which is cool, but it's good to hear, your. Hey, here's the funny thing on that. It's good to hear your spin on it, because we also have in the Mayan calendar the idea of the galactic spin, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
I hear you. Well, people might be wondering, well, what can they do, or what should they be doing in connection to this energy of the Venus and the Sun, or where we see symbolic of that. There's a lot of different symbolism from ancient world even to the modern. You see that plays out in movies, where you see in the movie The Matrix, they show the whole concept of the 5-point star. When Neil was actually died, and it was the kiss of the lady that brought him back to life. That's the symbolic of Venus and the Sun.
Okay.
Taken from ancient Egypt, of the whole thing of when Ra was sick, and
Isis.
and Isis.
Yeah, the story of
the
Isis.
same symbolic of the Venus and the Sun conjunct. So it's a very strong magnetism, very good energy for inquiring and for imagination and for power, empowerment. People who want to have certain things manifest in their life, they can use that energy or that time frequency.
That's
Normally I see certain things that takes place, because when the Venus transit happens, it's like there's different issues happens around the world in connection with the Venus. So it's not a one-off issue or single place. You normally, places like France, for instance, where you have a strong, or Paris, where you have a strong connection with Venus, there's issues that manifest. I noticed the connection with Haiti, America, certain parts of Europe is always something that manifests in connection with the 5-point star of Venus. We know that the last 8 years we had that major thing that happens, which is a riot in London, right smack dab on the Venus transit in Leo. I'm not saying that we're going to have a riot again, but we're saying that the cycle that brought that in is we're back into that same cycle in connection.
Well, I think, I think this is going to bring up a lot of volatile energy around more like the politics as well. Because you mentioned about France, and look at the stuff going on there. Yeah.
Say it again.
I said you mentioned this thing about, you remembered about France. You mentioned about France, and I was saying, look at the stuff that's been. Yeah, look what's been happening in France. Okay.
No, I don't know what's happening.
Well, all the political stuff going on there, and the yellow coats and vests and stuff, and people just saying, boy, protesting against the government out in the streets and all of that business. You see? Yeah?
Well, that's part of the Venus. When Venus transits the Sun like that, it's very much a strong influence, magnetic-wise and magical-wise,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is then, what you're saying, how to use it, if you're in that higher vibration of love, where you're doing some clearing and so forth, so you are attuned into your soul's light, you can work this magic. But if you're getting caught up in the personality attachment and the narratives and holding on to these old things that keep you in these lower density emotions, or when the things are coming up to be cleared, you're resisting it. I mean, what do you think's, what's going to happen with that? You can't, it's going to be, what do you think with that? What's going to be magnetically drawn to folk if they're on that frequency? May not be too wholesome. Yeah? You understand me?
This question, go again.
Well, I'm saying, okay, hope you can hear me, because I'm putting you where the speaker is, so you can be heard very clearly by the listeners. I'll slow down what I'm saying. I mean, what you were saying about how we can use this energy, and we're dealing with the 5-pointed star, the Venus cycle, and the magnetic wizardry, the power. If you're dealing with higher science, higher occult, higher mysticism, or what one wants to say, it's a good time to manifest that which is more positive and in alignment with oneself.
Yes.
at the same time, we know that these things that see, a lot of people don't think that astrology is being worked with on an occult level or mystic level by the politicians and government and so forth. Yeah. So when certain things are done, it's always done at Pacific times. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Where they want to harvest more of the, they pump up the negativity, the things that is being put on through the social media, what's putting on the TV, this and that. They know, you're sending. Look, emotions are frequencies, thoughts are frequencies. So you're pumping all of this stuff, knowing that, the movies, the zombie movies, yeah, a lot of the zombie movies, you know who they represent, yeah, the zombie movies. You with me, Clyde? What's happening? You've disappeared. Nah, bro, you was clear, and now you're gone. I can hear you faintly. I don't know what's happening here. Hang on.
Yeah.
All right, me hear you now.
Went down a little bit.
All right, you come back again.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was saying, in the movies, there's a whole heap of zombie movies they're making all the time, right? You know who they represent, yeah? They basically.
The zombie movies.
Yeah, the zombie movies, yeah? They make a lot of these zombies, yeah. And they represent the general public, right? So what I'm saying is that because more time the general public is caught up with a lot of the things that the negativity that they draw on and get caught up in, what's happening to this celebrity, what's going on, Pandatelia, the narratives of the past that we get caught up in, which is not the full story. What I'm saying is that these people use these, they know they're dealing with the occult levels of astrology and the Mayan. And they do things, put elections on, or put even certain programs, TV, certain things on these particular times. So they can, use it to distract you from the positive alignment you could achieve. In order to harvest all the negativity that a lot of people are on. They love to run in and out of this stuff. And all they have to do is use they just have to use some event that becomes like a torch, like a blue torch to just trigger, activate, and explode the energies they've been pumping people with. You see what I'm saying? Or people have been allowing themselves to absorb and get caught up on. And then they just use some of one event and they just trigger it, and there's a big explosion. You know what I mean? So I'm saying being aware of this too, having to be very aware of other people's things, and what they're on, to be pulling one out into more of this personality identification rather than aligning with the core of yourself, connecting with your heart and tuning in with your soul, because these things are being used at these volatile moments, at these very highly charged moments. There's no coincidence as such, even coincidences, two incidences happening together. So nothing's random. Nothing's random, So, giving people a heads up, because as much as you try to share how these energies work, man,
Yes, well, the thing that people should always remember that they are the kingdom, the power, and the glory.
All right.
All of that,
Yeah.
Because sometimes what they use fear to rob our power. They use fear to rule over us.
You see?
Mm-hmm. And fear, if you use fear, if you understand fear from another aspect of travel, then if you have your fear, you can travel. But you have to know which fear you have to travel.
True
because
thing.
fear can move you to another level, whether negative or positive. But we have to learn to overcome our fears.
Yeah.
Because your fears can take you, your bus fear can take you from one place to the other. But fear of things that the unknown can also drive you in a very subconscious deficit.
Yes, man. You know what I mean?
And so,
and I like the.
We have to know how to ride the wave in that sense.
True thing. Surf them waves.
Knowledge is wisdom, is understanding.
Yeah, true thing. Surf the waves there. And I like the thing there with the fear there, because you can't even get on bus or train and get lost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's always good to broaden your scope, and that's why sometimes people may hear things for the first time where we use the word magic or we use the word astrology, and the first people think that we're Satanists or
All them
we
foolish
far
things.
away from the Bible, but these are all biblical connotations. These are all
Exactly.
biblical knowledge, because one of the, when you come on to real, dealing with the deeper aspects of life, when you're talking about the magical qualities or the scientific qualities from what people know, we modern people call science. Ancient people say magic, or people say, miracles, or the magi, and all of these things. People get bent out of shape and think that, when you mention these words, that we're dealing with an evil part, or we're negative in our understanding, or we need the blood of Jesus.
Yeah, literally.
And all of these things that people have to realize that the blood of Jesus in his ancient teaching, or his ancient connotation, is actually the energy of the sun, or the energy of the soul. That's a whole different teaching, or different understanding. If people wants to go deeper, all we just do is tell that the door is there, just knock. Just knock, you'll be open,
Yeah, man.
And people think, oh yeah, I'm not going to go there, I'm not going to go here, and this is how they lock us down and keep us on synthetic food and synthetic knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, and I see it. I tell you though, my brother, a lot of people just want to keep themselves there, because this is what you're talking about. There is the societal and cultural conditioning that when you don't break out of it by seeking to know who you are beyond what you've been taught to believe, beyond how your perceptions from early have been shaped to misinterpret what's being told to you, especially from this theologian interpretation of that book there, the scripture, and it's interesting now with scripture, and everything is a script. Them use script to make movie, to put in a reel that they want you to believe is real or take for real when you're watching it on the screen. You see what I mean? And all of it is mimicking our consciousness, you see? But it's the conditioning, brother. And you have people that don't want to question their beliefs. They just want to this is how we talk. They just want to reinforce it because the fear. Yeah? The fear. No. You see? Yeah? Because what you believe determines how you interpret life. And for a lot of people, what they're believing, right, based on how they're interpreting life is also where they believe their security is coming from. So to question it is like, what do you mean? Question it, To question it now, you find the insecurities start to kick up, and they want to defend the belief, but it's only a belief. They haven't questioned and said, well, hang on a minute, what's the truth about this? I was brought up being told this. I was brought up hearing such and such, but what is it really? You know what I mean? That's the beginning, because it takes self-effort on the path. When you're starting off, it's going to be certain pain you may experience. You're going to experience some difficulty. But it's through that difficulty that, you find yourself enduring, and you evolve through it, or you grow through it. You see what I mean? But some folk don't want to experience any difficulty, so they stay in the ignorance of what they've been conditioned to believe in. And this is where these attacks come from. Even when you hear the term meditation, my gosh, from a lot of people who are still caught up in a religious interpretation, a theologian, religious interpretation, they're thinking if you meditate, you can be possessed by demons, or you open yourself up to entities that all of them sitting there. And they don't realize, no, that's your thoughts. That's your mind that's going to do that. If that's how you believe, your fear is going to draw to you exactly the same thing that you're on, And so, it does a lot of damage. But the thing is that, how it go. It's not about convincing anybody. It's not about changing anyone else. It's about changing yourself. Yeah? And those who are receptive to what we're saying or to what they find themselves drawn to will take the first steps and so forth. But there's that saying, one man can't drink water for quench another man's thirst. You hear that one, yeah? You know what I mean? So in this time, I feel like, people who may get caught up in the negativity because they're trying to, they believe, I'm here to save people. I'm having to try to get this one, not to get caught up in this and that. You're just going to burn up yourself, You see? Because, as I said, you can bring the water to somebody, but you can't drink it for them to quench the thirst. And this is where you have some people, they don't want to even drink the water. They want you to pop it in their mouth. And they don't even, and even if it did that, they still have to be the one to swallow it, to absorb the water to quench the thirst. And some of them don't even want to do that, brother. You know what I mean? But anyway, moving beyond that, what you were saying about the usage of this energy, because like, look, even in the scripture, when it says, and everybody may think, some people may think, oh, scriptures, dealing with spiritual stuff, but everybody's living out a script, everybody's living by a script. So the script they have in their subconscious is what their personality is playing out, the role they're playing out. But the point is that even in the scripture, it says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so shall he become. And we know that the heart is the subconscious. And we know that whatever's impressed in the subconscious becomes the script. Yeah? That now the subconscious now creates and the personality is acting out that role. So when we're chatting about even these terms, the law of attraction and ting, yeah? It's always been there in them scriptures. It's about consciousness science. It was not about worshiping any dead man. Yeah? And thinking, say, you're baptized in a piece of water, that's what make you safe. Yeah? Because you're still looking outside of themselves for the truth. And you can't find the ultimate meaning outside of you. Can only be found within. But anyway, I'm saying all of this because I feel activated in that way. But I would like you to, when we're talking about how ones who are receptive can use these energies now, coming up now with the intensity, could you speak a bit more upon, because when you said about the Venus transit and where it's taking place now, is it the same place it was activated 8 years ago?
Yeah, same place, yes, in Leo.
In Leo. And that was 8 degrees. That was 8, yeah.
Sorry?
That was 8, wasn't it? 8 degrees.
8 years ago, I don't remember what the degree is.
I think it was 8 degrees. Okay.
And this is going to be on the 13th of August. Interesting, also it's on the birthday of Nipsey Hussle, the
really?
that died in Florida.
Okay, yeah.
Not Florida, California. This year was,
Yeah.
So it's interesting that for the birthday, but it's also center between the Leo, almost center between the full moon as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the 8, it's interesting. I was saying that it's 8 years, and we also have 8 in the major arcane of the tarot is the lion. Yeah.
Yes.
And then we had the moon, the new moon, at 8 degrees of Leo.
Okay.
You see the correspondence and correlation. That's what I was saying. If you see it there, and then we know what 8 represents. Yeah, we know about 8 is power. 8 is about the spiritual and the physical, or the spiritual and material. Yeah, and a balance between those two, and the true. And I was saying earlier on about 8 is a power number. It represents power and also the infinity of energy circulating continuously. But it also represents where we have to. Yes. And it also represents heaven and earth. So you got the inner and the outer. You see what I mean? So, and I was explaining that because it's it also represents divine power. If we understand that the source of power is not outside of us, when the 8 number gets kind of imbalanced, when people are looking outside for power, whatever symbolized power them feel, if I grab onto that, attach that, that's going to make them feel more powerful and control, which is usually having power over others, when true power is having power over yourself. You see what I'm saying? And so when we do look for the true source of power, it's spiritual within. So the 8 represents the divine power and the balance between not suppressing the urges, but finding balance between your spiritual and physical. Because I was saying that our spirituality is being expressed through our physicality. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes.
So we find a balance there, and it just brought to my attention as well that 8 represents life, death, rebirth or transition, isn't it? With the Scorpio house.
Yes.
Yeah.
As well as wealth as well. For anybody who born under number 8 is also wealth.
Abundance.
17,
Yes.
You know, wealth. When we talk about wealth, we talk about mental, physical, spiritual.
Yes. It represents abundance. Yeah. The horn of plenty. Yes. You know. Nah, brother, beautiful. With the Venus, could you explain a little bit about the magnetic energy then, how it can be used? Because that's the emotional, the feeling aspect, and any kind of an example in a sense that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, anytime two planets come together, it's symbolic of a new moon. It's very symbolic of the new moon cycle, but not even though they're not the moon. The moon cycle, because there's an attraction. It's similar to when two people meet for the first time and exchanging information, partnership or agreement. So with the Sun and Venus, when they meet every 8 years in the different sign, it sets off a magnetic flare in terms of a very, very strong energy to deal with the sign and with the two planets. And so with the Sun and Venus, we know that it's very strong magnetism towards love, towards creativity, because love is the Venus energy, is the energy of love. Leo is the energy of the heart. It's also love, but it's also creativity as well. So strong creative energy. It's also power, because Leo is also leadership. Venus also represents aspects of finance and the social system. So it's all to do with connecting with that. So sometimes you see that when the Venus transit, you see sometimes a social unrest because people are uncomfortable with some of the things that are not going right for them.
Yes.
So that's why sometimes that creates a bit of an issue on the social level in terms of issues, in terms of government and the people that they're supposed to represent or they're misrepresenting. And so you see that the magnetic people felt empowered to voice it out or to take to the streets and things like that. So you see these things happen on it because it's almost like they felt they have like a divine power to move forward and to voice out their issues. So that when you see the Venus transit, you always see things happening at the social level, because remember, Venus ruled the social enterprise, the social status, the social system, because Venus is the planet that rules both Libra and Taurus. Yes. It deals with your value system and also relationship. And so this comes out to play. We know that when we talk about the 5-point star, most of the plants that have 5-point star on them, there's a lot of herbs out there with the 5-point star as a protective mechanism. Very powerful magical plants, such as the elderflower. The elderflower, even though it's very minute flower, the plant, when you look at it under a microscope, you actually see a 5-point star. Tomato, the stem of the tomato is a 5-point star. People don't realize that one time tomato was considered poison. People see that bright red and they thought, that must be poisonous. Rose, 5 petals. Even the symbolic for the Rosicrucian is the 5 petals, which is also symbolic of the 5-point star.
And even an apple.
Cola nut.
Yes.
The cola nut, when you look at the cola nut plant, that's a 5-point star. So this couldn't be something to deal with evil. Some people take it,
It's how them use a thing,
But on the sense where you find where you may have revolts and things that manifest because of the Venus transit, is people voicing out the issues that we can't take it no more. We got extra power to just speak out and voice out, because you got the heart and the love of Venus, the sun and the love of Venus. Like, no, let's take to the street, let's do what we have to do, let's voice it out, to speak our truth.
Yes. I hear that. On the next level, though, what about the individual or personal issues that come up when we're talking about social as well? On the individual level, because we can talk on the collective, but then there is a lot of the individual issues that's being ramped up in this or personal issues that are being ramped up as well. You know what I mean? Because we do kind of seem to not deal with the individual as its importance. We think more of the collective, but the collective is made out of individuals. And based on the quality of the individuals, in the sense of the levels of their consciousness, determines the collective level of the consciousness of what any particular group. So
let's look at this way. You can have a relationship that's not going good between an individual partner, whether male or female, and under this hyper energy, either the male or the female decide to move beyond the confinement of the relationship or the issues and decide, okay, well, I've got to make a decision whether we're going to continue or we're going to break up or we're going to work this out, mend it up. So under these energies are where also these things get voiced out or dealt with.
Yes.
So that's where sometimes this impact the social level depends and who it is and how they decided to approach the situation. Some people take it to the public, some people take it to family, some people take it to friends.
Right.
And this way you have it, escalating. Just like if you look at what happened 8 years ago in terms of the riots that happened in London, it started very small. but because all of the energy that there was impact on the magnetism, it just escalates other issues that people have. Because that is supposed to start in Hackney somewhere, but then you end up all the way in different parts of London or different parts of the UK, I should say, because other people's issues were similar to what was happening, so it just exacerbates the whole thing.
Like a track,
so these are the things that would happen under this one incident starts escalating into different areas of the,
it's just.
I remember people said, well, I saw you out there in the riot. I'm like, no, that was me. It's like, no, that's not me. I wasn't there. I was in a different location. People say, yeah, they saw me. And I was like, no, that wasn't me. And it's hard to tell people because, somebody with a certain heart will all do the same. Like, no. So these things will happen. So your things flare up under these energies because what happens is like sometimes, because we also have the retrograde, because retrograde means that we also rectifying issues. And we already come out to the retrograde. I think we come out to the...
we're in the shadow of the...
retrograde,
we're Mercury. No, the Jupiter retrograde is in the 11th when it starts to go direct. It's slowing down, and it's the same day. The 11th is Uranus as well. But if Mercury, we've now
retrograde. We're out of the Mercury retrograde.
We're out of the Mercury retrograde now.
So all this retrograde means that we're rectifying the situation, even though you know that under the Brexit they're trying to rectify the issue that they're having. There's a big divorce going on in London, and I should say the UK. There's a big divorce going on. The divorce from the European Union. Some people want the divorce, some people don't want it.
The divorce.
And then it's about sharing up what belongs to which shoes gonna go west or which shoes gonna go east. Who's gonna get the long shirt and who's gonna get the short shirt? Who's gonna get whatever. And that's what's happening. So there's a bit of a rectification now. There's a new man coming in, and he's saying, well, he's gonna move it forward. And so there's a whole lot of stuff, and they're setting up all this stuff for October. And October is not a good time for this because under the Mayan, as we're talking about the Mayan, we're going down the roughest time. So as they set this for October, it's not a good time. But then they're not following these things. So, because when we enter the Blue Castle around that time, it's going to be chaos.
Rotted.
You understand?
Yeah, man. And the thing is, it's a joke. I get someone said to me about, so it's a collective divorce going on here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a big divorce. It's like, the children are saying, the children of the country is saying, and from both sides of the coin is saying, well, I want this divorce, and some say, no, we don't want it, and it's a whole thing. But it's not down to the government at the same time. That's what we have to understand. It's also the people.
Yeah.
Just like any divorce, the children is just as important as the father or mother that makes decisions.
Yeah.
So and so who knows that even in connections, because I said that this whole thing gonna lead to a general election. People don't believe that, but I watched the climate.
You have to watch
The
it,
climate
innit?
is not good.
Right,
Because
man.
it's not up to one man to make all this decision, because it's a big decision. It's a massive one. And then because this white wizard that we enter is also very in connection with British, because I've done the British, I've done the Britain, what they call it, Mayan thing, and I know where they're located in the Mayan based on things. So, this is like interesting message for the UK in connection to the cycle that we're in. And so it's not so clear cut as they would think it is. It's very costly, as we see the pound is dropping like flies, and people don't know where the pound. The investors are waiting to see what's happening, and so it's impinging on what's happening, and frustration is building, and when frustration is building, and then you also have the magical window such as the transit, then this could take off.
Oi. And while you're saying all of this, he was using the word flare up a few times. And when he was speaking, he was using the word flare up a few times,
Yes.
And then I was thinking of the solar flares and how the solar flares are also impacting in the sense of situations flaring up. Individually, personal, the smaller group type of situations, You feel the solar flares. A lot of people don't realize that when there is a solar flare, you can actually feel the peak of that. And this is where usually certain big arguments explode off on. And people don't really correlate that with the solar flare because they're not realizing how they're interconnected with everything,
Yes. Well, interesting that you say that, because, the white wizard represents timelessness.
Yeah.
And it represents also the energy of the heart. Is that, timelessness is that in the sense of the magical quality and the unity consciousness. It just means that one party not going to have the say for the rest of the country. When we look at the Brexit and this energy that is ruling, it means that's why I'm so strong that it's going to be a general election, because it's going to has to be a unity consciousness to deal with the issue of Brexit. It's not just one party system. As much as the conservative think they can solve all the problem, no. They might be able to conserve things.
Exactly.
But they're not going to solve all the problem.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
said that, just injecting here, because I'm not really into the politics thing as in getting myself catch emotionally in it. But I did see something recently to do with this Boris, who's now being elected as, after Theresa May. And he's trying to get an early election.
Well, we can't say Boris is elected. They're playing the rabbit in the hole. They're just jumping out. One rabbit come out and another rabbit going, and there will be 2 rabbits now been from running from hole to hole. And it's like, well, you can't run a country like that under democracy.
And look at democracy. What democracy is doing in America? A mad up business, yeah? Plantations. Yeah, man, just want to keep people in slavery. But it's just, what you're saying. I mean, but watch the space, my brother, because a lot of folk, they ain't gonna understand things until them see it. You understand? So what you are saying, that what you think is gonna happen, we just have to watch it. You know what I mean? You hear me?
Yes. Well, the gates of Leo is actually
the Lion's Gate.
The gate of the lion, which is the opening of Leo, you got the new moon, and the closing of Leo, you got the new moon.
The full moon.
Or within the sign of you got new moon in both signs of
right.
In August, I should say, you got the double new moon cycle.
Right.
Which is very, they call it the black moon, really.
Yeah, them call it that.
The blue moon is where the full.
Yes.
So they call it the black moon. So if we have to go back to the last 8 years, which I think it was 2003, when we had the blackout also in London connection, but that's a whole different story. But that black moon is, and because Leo also represents authority, and so somewhere along the line, there's things happening in secrets that it would manifest itself, as to the whereabouts of how the best way forward. Some things are going on in the secret closets of different people, and somewhere along the line, whatever in the darkness must come to light.
Yeah.
But the full moon is going to be very interesting in connection, because the full moon is the opposite of this new moon as well.
I would say also that looking at the polarity opposite of Leo is Aquarius. And we've had, and Aquarius is about the freedom to know thyself. The Aquarius is about the individual uniqueness, the diamond self. I think in Buddhism they call it the Bodhisattva. Might have pronounced the last bit wrong there, but it's about the diamond self.
What? Say that again.
The Buddha Sattva. It could, Sattva.
Yes.
The diamond self. And that represents Aquarius, because Aquarius is about breaking out from the consensus thinking, the conforming to basically, man-made principles, and want to line up with the cosmic truth. And it's about the individuality and the uniqueness of each individual, the diamond self, rather than conforming to the consensus. Everybody will go that way, you go that way, and So when we're looking at it, that polarity.
People, the Bodhisattva, because I've looked into that, those are Buddhas or not necessarily Buddhas, but it's coming from a Buddhist tradition.
Yes,
they could be Christians or other spiritual people that have the same concept.
Yes.
But these are people who have received enlightenment, but they decide not to go into enlightenment, but to stay on to help others or their brothers and sisters to come into the light. So it's like a vow. It's like a vow. Yes, we know that the enlightenment is there, and we're happy to be enlightened, but we would sacrifice our enlightenment for the good of the rest of the people that needs to come into the light. And so they call it the bodhisattva, similar to like a vow that they take, not to go into enlightenment, but to continue to lift the veil for other people to come forward. So it's like a Christ consciousness of making sacrifice for others to see the light, as opposed to them going off to paradise and leave everybody behind.
Understood, but then some things are gonna have to be that way, because you can't force people into what they don't want to go into. Because if they have fear more holding on to, then what you gonna do? You know what I mean? Because it's still about the choices.
People that, the concept. A lot of us are really, there's a whole plan of ignorance against the masses, and somewhere along the line that we have to shed the light, and shedding the light for others also means sacrifice as well, because some of us have to, hear certain things that we consider, well, you're not supposed to say this and you're not supposed to say that.
And then you're gonna get dealt with that.
You consider which doctor you consider.
All of them things,
You consider negative, even though you're taught the truth, because, like, for instance, you tell people, well, there is no J in the Hebrew alphabet, so there could be a J-S-U-S.
Exactly.
Of a person.
Exactly.
Or there could be no J-O-B, which is Job. Well, something must be wrong there, that we got it all wrong here somewhere along the line. But that itself, when you even bring these things up, you consider.
Man. Exactly. And then I even realize what the devil is. They don't realize, oh Lord. But anyway, this is the thing. So this is where the so-called suffering to help those who are receptive to lift up, themselves, come from. But so what I was gonna say as well then now, looking at that with the polarity of Aquarius and Leo, and we're chatting about the enlightenment, which is the light within your mind being illuminated, through the consciousness of the soul. What I'm saying here now with Leo also represents the inner light, connecting with your inner light rather than the outer. If we look upon, because I was saying about the sun, it seemed, we're looking at the sun on the outside, but there's a sun on the inside, So Leo also represents, I would say, the opportunity in this time here now with the energies is about tapping into your inner strength and having confidence in ourselves, and to connect with your own inner unique light. You know what I'm saying? Which is the message in this. Because I remember when he was saying that we have to realize that we are the kingdom and the power and the glory.
Glory, yes.
You see, so that's correlating, connecting what we're talking about here,
Well, is even the prayer, the kingdom, the power, and the
glory.
They're telling you straight out.
There you go.
But interesting, because we're dealing with Venus coming from behind the sun. When Venus
Emergency.
Like emerge from behind the sun. So it's coming fully loaded.
Yeah,
When
man.
that Venus coming from behind the sun, because Venus being like, behind the sun for the last 100 and something days.
Yes.
And now it's coming from behind the sun. And so it becomes the bright and morning star. Then the Venus becomes the bright and evening star. So it's got those two polarities that it plays out. One is considered the Lucifer, the light.
I was about to say this. I was about to say, look now, when you come up with that, then now, we have to go into this. Because one is called Lucifer, and the other one is Jesus. Yeah?
Yes.
So let's go into that. Go on, my brother.
Yeah. So as Venus comes from behind the sun, it comes from behind the sun very fully loaded. I remember the year when Snowden came out with the information about what's going on in the U.S. government and went into hiding per se, or went into another country. Russia.
Yeah.
Is it Russia? Or he went
I think Russia. I
Yeah.
think so. It was Russia.
That was also connected to this Venus transit when the Venus came from behind the sun, and it was very, very well documented. There's two types of the Venus. One is the Venus retrograde going behind the sun, because Venus is ahead of the sun and you retrograde to go behind the sun. This one is Venus coming in front of the sun. And so people that born with Venus in front of the sun are very calculated in terms of documentary. So, and that's why I use the word Snowden, because when Snowden, I remember when he came up with the information, was damaging information considered to the US on what they were doing. He was very documented. He had his stuff all laid out and stuff like that. And then he started updating year after year. Well, these are the things that would happen in connection to this type of Venus, where you can get some information coming out that is considered like, wow, this is the whistleblower type Venus.
Look at that. And we have Venus in Leo right now, which is behind the sun at the moment.
Yeah, so it's going to come in front of the sun. It's going to come ahead of the sun on the 13th.
Yeah, look at that.
It conjunct in the sun, and then after that it goes
ahead
behind the sun.
Yeah.
So emerging.
Yes, emergency. Look at that. You see, go.
There's some information and knowledge, and I hope I'm not breaking or putting anybody on the spot now, but damaging information that will come out about certain things that are going on behind the scenes, in the black of night or in the hidden parts of different society or group or government or even medical field, things like that. And these are the things that comes out with this type of Venus transit.
Right.
So, interesting information.
Yes, man, enough. This is packed to this evening, Star. My brother, so pleased that you called in and it happened how it's happened. It just flowed this way, So I'm gonna have to maybe stick a pin in it here because the show's coming up to 9:40 and I'm going to end it around 10, as it usually is. You see?
Yes.
Any last words you would like to say? Well, not last words, but any
I have an upcoming event on Saturday. This upcoming event, I'll be talking about astrology. Hold on, I'm just looking for the details.
Okay.
I'll be talking about astrology, spirituality, and health.
Right.
It's going to be this Saturday. I don't know if anybody is familiar with the flyer. I find the information so I could actually voice it out here.
Okay.
I'm just looking for that.
All right.
Okay, so that this Saturday at okay, I got it right here. That's 5 Nunhead Green in Nunhead, London, SE15 3QQ. And that's Saturday the 10th of August from 2 to 8 p.m. Okay, the event is called It's Time to Bring Back the Love and Healing in the Community in conjunction with the Healing Touch.
Okay. So it's 5 Nunhead Road, you said?
Yes, 5 Nunhead Green in Nunhead, London, SE15 3WQ. And that's Saturday the 10th and 2 to 8 p.m.
Okay, 2 to 8.
And it's from Eventbrite. It's £8 entry. And there'll be other speakers. There's other speakers, Galactic Clyde, there's going to be speaking on astrology. You also have Vasco Stevenson, healing and traumas and much more. You also have the Dogon from the Earth Center, Ayo, Yoruba Cosmology. You also have Libration by Chief Amalek. And we also have other people doing crystal healing and they'll be juicing and other workshops going on.
Okay.
This is this Saturday.
Okay, this Saturday.
Ken Darkey as well, holistic health, medical herbalist. Holistic health and medical herbalist, which is Ken Darkey. Yeah. He's not a stranger to this.
Yes, I know Ken Darkey. Yes, and
yeah. So this Saturday, so it'll be very informative. So for those people who are listening, come along. Let me see. There's a phone number for people to call. Let me see. There's a phone number 07842 765 384. Okay.
Okay, 384. Okay, I'll repeat it after you go, and the details, just main points. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And we'll touch base. Soon. Big up to Mr. Bless.
Yes,
I'm sure he's listening. So we'll be in touch soon now, and me and him need to touch base to iron out some rough patches. But respect. You know what I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah? No problem. Yes, I am.
So love and light to all the listeners and yourself. Yeah.
Yes. Give thanks, my brother. All right, and same to you as well. You know. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
we'll talk again soon. Yes. Respect. All right. Yes, wow. That was a bundle of information, fun, collaboration, inspiration, deep inner penetration, spiritual elevation, you know what I mean? And soul for soul expansion and nourishment, you see? So, wow, that was brilliant, you know? So yes, the end of a cycle and starting off a new one. Let me just give a little thing here about what I was saying at the beginning and how Clyde wonderfully, you know, contributed to the whole thing of what I've been talking about on this show this evening, you know. So when we're saying the year cycle as a spiral journey of time, okay? And as we were just saying in this talk with Clyde, there are cycles within cycles, you know. But from a mind perspective, because this system of galactic time provides a totally different magical way to relate to our yearly orbit around the sun. Rather than beginning with the year on the January the 1st, the galactic new year is always July the 26th. So this is why, you know, there is this whole thing about, you know, the galactic year and 13 year, you know, the cosmic moon. So this date corresponds to the Heliac rising of the star Sirius, okay? And I said that Sirius is also within the constellation of the sign Cancer. And we've been having a lot of energy dealing with the Cancer and Capricorn polarity. And, you know, so this is giving us a galactic reference point to orient the beginning of our yearly journey. This is from a galactic perspective, okay? Because we're just dealing with a yearly thing on an earthly level. But you're in a galactic, you're in a galaxy, okay? You know, within the cosmos, okay? So there's a broader and deep, wider, expansive environment to align with. And again, this is also within you, hence the microcosm and the macrocosm, okay? So this is based on the law or the principle of correspondence. So you got the micro, which they say the smaller, which is the inner cosmos. And then you have the macro, which is the larger, what you're seeing projected outside or surrounding. externally. So there is that that intimate relationship when we tap into our soul consciousness. We'll come to realize all of this. So yes, so yeah, I mean, a lot has been said. A lot of information there, shared by Brother Galactic Clyde, and I think you get the gist. So just to kind of tie everything up together, you know, a lot of things is getting ready to ramp up, you know, and with the magnetic energy of Venus and how it's going to emerge from behind the sun, and this being in Leo, and as I was saying earlier about the Lion's Gate, and this is a porthole that's been activated from the 26th of July, which is the beginning of the Galactic New Year, and will go till the 12th of August, okay? And the 8th of August is going to be the most, kind of, you can say, the intense, more higher frequency is going to reach its strongest point on the 8th. So be aware, you know, be aware of, you know, your inner space. Be aware of, this is more about your soul here, you know, and having your personality actually moving in harmony with your real self, your soul, okay? Also, waking up to your unique inner light, you know, through the heart, you see. But there has to be a purging, a purification, you see. And this can be experienced as fire flaring up in the heart, as we know that there is going to be collective agitation or collective, you're going to see collective response or reactions, I should say, as well as individual. And, you know, we're talking about, you know, your own personal lives and what we're going, you know, in each individual's going through, you know. The groups, the smaller groups like your family or your friends or so-called organizations you may be in, you know. This is all gonna be, you know, it's all part of the social, you know, the social aspect of your life, you know. And we're saying about, as Clyde was saying as well, about this, Venus represents the social aspect of ourselves, you know, relationships. Venus rules Libra, both Libra and Taurus. And Libra is about relationships, and diverse relationships, and, or I should say a diversity of relationships, yeah, or you can have partnership, you know, you and another, or so forth. And then when Venus is in Taurus, we're talking about the relationship we're having with our own self, okay? You know, what is that relationship we're having with our own self? So on the show previously, last Tuesday, I did mention about what is the nature of your inner conversation, you know, because what we're holding in our heart, and as the heart is symbolic of the subconscious, so shall one become, you see. So this end of a cycle is also a purification for us to, you're going to see, you know, a lot of things you've been experiencing already up to this point where, you know, things are coming up emotionally, you know, and you can work with them as signs of where, you know, the things you need to purge out from you, you know, the negativity you don't want to necessarily be connecting yourself with, because as we're saying, you know, there's a lot of folk are just functioning on the personality thing and having its demands upon that level and not realizing you have a deeper self, which is really guiding and directing things, and basically that deeper self and higher self, which is one, because the deeper you go, the higher you know, you connect within yourself, your soul self, you see, which is your inner sun, which I've already said again, how the word soul correlates with solar, sun, you know. And I said on previous shows how astrology is the study of the stars, and you are a star, so it's the study of the star within you. It's a tool to assist you to know thyself. And it's more than just, man, know thyself, which you hear, you know, a lot. Know thyself, man, know thyself. But the full rendition of that statement, which is actually a directive statement. It's not just a static statement. It was a directive statement on the Karnic walls in ancient Kemet, they call Egypt, is it said, man, know thyself and you will know the universe and the creative cosmic forces of life. That's the fuller rendition. So in that, that's also, in that statement, it's even directing you to who you really are beyond this corporeal personality programmed, conditioned state that, you know, keeps one in the electromagnetic field of this lower material dimension, you know, your desires and, you know, your wants being pulled, you know, you're trying to draw and have those things fulfilled. But it's about what nourishes your soul. And what you're doing may not be what your soul is here for. You know, you have to be in harmony with your soul's intention. You understand? So, wow. So it's coming to that point, and I've got 8 minutes left. Look at the word. Look at the 8 synchronizing again. So there's a lot around this number 8, and if you have it as your birth, like what they would say your destiny number, which is destiny is destination, okay? You know? So that is, you can find that out through adding the date of your birth, the month of your birth, along with the year, and then bringing it to a single number. But if you find that the date of your birth and the month and the year come to a number like 11, 22, 33, these are whole numbers. You don't add them together to make 11-2 or, you know, 22-4 or 33-6. No, these are what is considered as master numbers. Okay, so if you add all your thing comes up together, your numbers come together, which is a vibrational frequency now. You know what I mean? And it comes to these kind of whole numbers, which I've just mentioned, 11, 22, 33. Then they are called master numbers, and you keep them as that, and you look into the esoteric meaning of that. But when you say you add your numbers together and it comes to 8, well, you know, this is synchronized for you, you know? So everyone's going to experience it not the same way, and that's okay, you know? The thing is to have, you know, this is heads up, you know? And none of these events you see going on down here, as above, so below now, right? Correspondence. It works where, you know, astrology, you know, and this Mayan calendar, you're talking about, as long as we're within time and space, you're dealing with a cosmic clock, which triggers off certain more bigger, you know, that energy that's behind the mundane physical affairs. You're dealing with a cosmic clock that, you know, it clicks, you know, it reaches certain appointed times or hours where certain events are activated, certain things unfold, certain keys turn a lock, you know, and open up certain doors. This is what it does, you know? So this is why various events that many people don't realize are correlating with astrological, what's going on in the heavens. You're in, and check, when we say heavens as well, it's not about just the up above you out there, because again in the scripture, where does it tell you heaven is? It says the kingdom of heaven is within you. You understand? So it's, and when you want to plug in to something, you want power, you take the plug, you have to plug it into the socket to allow the power to flow through, you see? So it's just like you have to tune in to yourself, your soul self, you know? Because the story and the narrative many are holding on to based on the personality identification, the persona, the mass, the personal, you know what I mean? This is the stuff that keeps us in the emotional attachments of the lower 3D dimension, which is very coarse in its vibration, you see? Whereas the soul does not want to be trapped in that, you see? And whom you are, when you're going to deal with identities, I've said many times before, is to be found in the spiritual nature of you, not this corporeal and man-made labels and terms which has formulated this force identity, you know, this me, the little e, the little I, the little e of the ego, the I, the counterfeit I. You know, we are here to deal with and align with the authentic I, yeah, the eternal I, the immortal I of ourselves. And each individual has an I, you know, and I'm not talking about those two eyes, you know, them fleshy eyes you're looking at out into the world from. I'm talking about the I when each one is, you know, refers to themselves. You mean I? Yes. Yes. You mean? I? Yeah. You know, the I. You go beyond the me to say I. And that's the, as I said, that's the name of the grand name of the divine consciousness of you, the I am, you know? And what you attach to and add to I am will be added on to you. Hence why it says in them scriptures again, which is actually cosmic science. It's not the way many have been conditioned to believe in it based on theologian religious interpretation and miss a lot of wisdom about their own selves because they're just holding on to theologian religious interpretation. They don't realize this is the book of science. You know, all of those scriptures are books of science, cosmic science, consciousness science. It's about you see? So it's about looking in to find yourself, not looking out into the world. To do that will be just to project your own illusions onto it. And this is where you get it. And then I was mentioning about, look, you got a whole heap of those zombie movies, you know? And you get some people love these zombie movies. But the zombies, as I said earlier, represent the general public, okay? And look how zombies behave in the movies. They're very docile, but if you stir them up, now they're looking, all they want to do is consume more matter. More flesh. You see, they're just driven by fear and survival. So they're easily manipulated, controlled, or take in or are susceptible to a lot of these subliminal messages they pick up through the TVs and social media and all of this stuff, which is just prepping people for, you know, when the charge reaches a certain point, then they activate it. They set fire to it through an event, and then everybody explodes. And they always do this around various transits and cycles. So these transits and cycles really have a positive connotation for you if you were to realize the positivity of your own soul. Yeah, your own soul. But if you're caught up in the personality and stuff, they use these moments to harvest the negativity of energy, because a lot of things are coming up in people. Their shadows, the stuff you don't want there anymore. The negativity, you're saying, no, I'm moving away from this. I want to connect with the love, the kingdom, the glory, the power within myself, you know? So you can utilize these energies in this time to align and manifest your soul's desires. You see what I'm saying? That, you know, is more of a holistic approach to you, because it's going to take care of your, you know, your spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, when you're lining up with your soul's intention. Okay? So on that note, I've reached to that point where I'm going to say is good night or good shadow hour. A good shadow hour, and call it a night tonight. So thank you for all of y'all who managed to listen in, and you'll be able to tune into this as it's being recorded on YouTube. So I will forward it on to who, you know, wants to listen to it again. And you see, when you listen to this, also, if you do enjoy it, you find it, you know, helpful to you, press like, give the thumbs up. Just because there's views, you know, people may have viewed it, but do give it a like or give it a thumb up, you know what I'm saying? If you do find it useful for you and informative, okay? So, soul nourishing. So, on that note, it's, Oh yeah, and before I'll just, as I did say that I would for my brother there, the event that you can hear Clyde speaking at, which is going to be on this Saturday, you know, time to bring back the love, which we're chatting about unity consciousness here, and we're talking, you know, this is going to be at 5 Nunhead Green The area code is SE15 3QQ, and this is from 2 to 8 p.m. The entrance is £8 entry, and for a number to call for further information is 07842 76534. Okay, that's 07842 76534. If you want more further information on this event this coming Saturday. So, Brother Clyde as myself, I do astrology readings. I do basically assistance in meditation, enter into the meditation zone, and we're talking about soul connection here. So it's not about the ego personality, the me and the personality stuff. This is about deeper than that, you know? So, and I'm a spiritual consultant. And when you're dealing with spirituality, some people really do have this thing messed up a little. They think, you know, you're just supposed to be there to take a load of garbage, you know, when that ain't the case at all. That's more theologian, religious nonsense, you know, that just sets people up to get messed up with people who, you know, just want to project all their personality stuff, their mind stuff onto them. But spirituality is actually about you waking up to the spiritual reality of yourself and come out of this dream that you're having as a person, you know, and realize that the personality is really the tool or the vehicle, the electromagnetic vehicle for your soul intention, you see? So yes, so if anyone wants to contact me, you can do so via Bless Radio or on my email, which is cosmic.inner.energyflow@gmail.com. That's cosmic.inner.energyflow@gmail.com. So these is ways you can contact me, okay? Or yeah, that's it for now. So yes, expect the best. Know that you deserve all goodness that you desire, because you cannot acquire what you don't feel you deserve. And expect the best, accept the best, and realize nothing's too good to be true. Yeah? Because a lot of people are on, oh, well, if it's bad, it could be true, but something's too good to be true. Well, this good is about the goodness within yourself. And so it's what you decide to make an agreement with in yourself. You can make an agreement with the negativity and the limitations of that you want to believe about you, or about what you're being projected and what you want to believe and hold on to. Or you can believe in the intrinsic goodness of yourself, okay, when you're identifying with your spiritual origin and source of being. And this is where the true identity is to be found, in the immortal I within. So on that note, I wish you all a good shadow hour, and yeah, catch you on the flip side next Tuesday on Cosmic's Root Show.